There's the pole sitter Jarno Trulli pouring into pits. Just listen to the crowd.
They're stunned, we're stunned. So it looks like we're going to have a 6-car start.
It's the strangest race ever, and it gets underway now.
A ridiculous spectacle as Formula One self-destructs in the USA. The paying public at Indianapolis make their feelings clear. A doddle for Ferrari, but F1 stinks. Now's the time to clear the air. Normal service resumes in France.
Across the line he goes.
And Alonso, again then with a brilliant performance for his second consecutive pole here in Manicourt.
The classy Spaniards are pole sitter at Renault's home Grand Prix. Just 23, Alonso's still on course to become the youngest world champion ever. Race 10 means it's effectively half-time in F1 2005. Welcome to Manicourt for the French Grand Prix. Hello there, good afternoon. When you foul up in peak time at the self-styled motor racing capital of the world, you create waves that take some time to calm down. Since the Indianapolis fiasco, the Michelin Tyre Company have offered a full refund to every spectator there. The 7 teams who did not race have been summoned to Paris by the governing body, the FIA. Ted Kravitz takes up the story.
Formula One's been playing the blame game in France this week. The 7 Michelin teams were found guilty of not coming to a race with the right equipment. The bosses are angry. 6 teams will appeal.
Simple fact is the option of not appealing would have been guilt by admission, and we're guilty of nothing. We're just guilty of putting the driver's safety first.
The situation is steeped in F1 politics. ITV has seen a consultation document that will be discussed by everyone except Ferrari and Jordan at a meeting next week. On that agenda, a potential change in the sport's governance.
How do you react to some of the teams, Max, saying, actually, it's you that's the problem here?
It's just nonsense, because the thing is that the problem is they didn't have the right equipment. And suppose it had been different and it had been Bridgestone, and Ferrari and the Bridgestone teams had come to Charlie Whiting saying, got a problem with our tyres, can you put a chicane in turn 13? Can you imagine the Michelin tyres would have fallen about laughing.
The day after Indy, Michelin's share price dropped 3%. Michelin have tried to defuse the situation by refunding the fans the cost of their race tickets. Won't this cost them millions?
Maybe, but when you make a mistake, you have to pay for it.
Why did it happen? Well, simply Michelin made a huge mistake. They underestimated the loadings that the banked turn 13 would put on the tyre. It couldn't cope with the stress and would blow itself apart after 10 laps. It was not a safe tyre.
Well, it was crystal clear by that time already. You know, we had a tyre failure on Ricciardo's car. I had a tyre failure after the eighth lap. I think even Jarno had a problem on his free practice tyre already. So, we all knew that it was impossible to drive.
The only way the Michelins could race was if the speed was reduced by building a chicane in the middle of turn 13. Without a chicane, 7 teams had no choice but to pull out. Possible solutions were suggested. Why couldn't the Michelin drivers just slow down through there?
You don't drive slowly in a fast corner. That is a driver killer, because someone else can misjudge the speed. I would defy anyone who's a driver to believe you could have that as an option.
We had so many meetings that morning in Indianapolis that everything was quite clear about the problem and about the safety.
We should have found a way to still being able to drive that afternoon. Maybe not race, but drive.
when I went on the formation lap, I felt really sorry for all the spectators, all the fans, because they thought that they will see a good race, a good start, but we knew already that we drive to the pits.
Again, if it comes down to my choice, I want to race.
It's fundamental to being a racing driver that you want to go out there and race. You know, cars fail, whether we like it or not, all the time. Stupid as it may sound, the day that you decide that you're not prepared to take a risk is the day you retire.
Probably more than anybody out there, was the hardest guy to stop, because half of the fans were Colombians, and knowing what people make in Colombia and the amount of people that managed to get there, it's hard to see how they just win their money. It's a sport and it's a show, and I think it's bad that politics got involved and politics were above the sport. I think that's pretty bad.
Politics got in the way. That's sort of a nightmare revisited there. Looking at it, Bernie, do you think now that something could have been done to give us a race there?
With hindsight, maybe yes. But, hindsight's a wonderful thing. At the time, we had so many meetings, it got so confused, and every time we found a solution, the side effects were worse. In the end, the truth of the matter was we didn't want an accident, obviously, where we could hurt anybody. Really, now, I suppose, if we'd have all got together and said, look, we need to entertain the public, because that's our job, why can't we all run Bridgestone tyres? Because they were okay. It would have solved the problem, but it wasn't that easy at the time.
Did egos get in the way? There's some big characters around this paddock.
Yep, I think you're right. I think it's a lot to do with it, and it's continuing as well.
How hard did you work personally to make this race happen, and how badly do you feel that you've been blamed for it not happening?
Well, I did everything that could possibly be done, and again, with hindsight, the best thing we did was not to have a race, certainly with the Michelin tyres. And Michelin have been really, really super. They said, look, we made a mistake, that's it. And it's no different really and true if you think about it. If there's a chef cooking for a banquet, puts too much salt in the food, and the food's no good, because that's what happens with building tyres for a race. The tyres here at Manicourt is built for this race, and they're useless after that.
But out there were millions of people waiting for the banquet for the United States Grand Prix, and then they got a pretty scruffy old morsel, really, didn't they? What would you like to say to them?
We're terribly, terribly sorry for everybody, all the TV viewers worldwide as well. It was really, really bad. At least the people that bought the food, and it wasn't very good, too much, so got their money back.
How badly did you feel deep down? People say to me they've never seen you so angry.
Well, I was upset with a lot of this. I was upset. As I say, people's egos got in the way of reality in the end.
Is it dead now in the United States, Formula One? You said at the time you thought it was looking pretty bleak.
Yeah, but I think now we'll find a way. We'll be back next year for sure.
Without getting too involved in politics, Max Mosley is not a very popular figure in this paddock, and I know you work very, very closely with him, Bernie. Is it time perhaps for a change there for F1's future?
Well, they have to find somebody that's better than Max. Max works very, very hard doing what he does. People say he meddles in Formula One where he shouldn't, but that's opinions. So he's really the FIA referees and the police.
Yeah. But he was sitting at home back in Monte Carlo and effectively stopped the Grand Prix, if I understand it correctly.
No, he didn't stop it. He was against the chicane being put in, and as I say, with hindsight, I'm pleased we didn't.
You feel sorry for the fans out there. Do you feel sorry for the drivers as well, who suffered a lot of personal abuse out at Indianapolis?
We all suffered abuse, I suppose. The drivers shouldn't have got any abuse because they wasn't allowed to drive. Michelin said you can't run.
Just finally, you're a fellow who always looks for a positive in every situation. I must admit, I am struggling, but tell us the positives from the United States Grand Prix.
Well, Webby wasn't very well known in America, and if this had happened to any of the other series in America, it wouldn't have been printed. In our case, we're headlines all over America, what happened, and particularly me with my lady with the white dress.
Yes, well, we won't tell everybody what you said there because they took it pretty badly over there. I don't think our viewers would like it too much either. There was a bit of a sexist remark there, but
no, it was a joke, and
I know it was a joke. Yeah, no, I know. But just a final thought from me about this race here. It's important we get an absolute corker this afternoon.
Absolutely, 100%. We need them all doing the job.
Okay, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Sorry for the viewers.
OK, thank you, Bernie. And the main point of view on the track about the fiasco at Indy is that all of a sudden Michael Schumacher has emerged as a genuine contender for the driver's title once again, because the top two were doing very, very little, Alonso and Raikkonen. And Michael Schumacher has moved up there into third place. Barrichello's been on the last three podiums. Trulli's Toyota, that is on the front row here. But the Williams pair, Heidfeld and Webber, they are off the pace. Fisichella level with the top Brit David Coulthard. The Scot won here 5 years ago, but Coulthard's been hampered by running early in qualifying. Tony Jardine has joined me now. Now, Tony, what about the relationship between the drivers and the governing body post-Indy?
Well, it's not good, and the big problem is the Grand Prix Drivers Association, of which David Coulthard is a director and of which Michael Schumacher is the president, don't have any teeth. They have a voice but no teeth. They signed a document, all 19 of them, backing the fact that they should have a chicane and that they all wanted to race at Indianapolis. Michael Schumacher didn't. They had a GPDA meeting here to admonish their own president, and they are meant to circulate another document. We also read on the websites this morning, it was reported on the websites, that David Coulthard said to the other members of the GPDA that he'd had a telephone call from Max Mosley, who was expressing his displeasure with the position of the drivers, and they weren't allowed to go to the World Council meeting either. But they're in the front line. They can tell us all about safety, and they should be listened to. OK, Tony, thank you very much indeed. Let's get on with the action, shall we? Let us review qualifying. This is a relatively short circuit here at Manicourt. If you make a single slip, it can cost you very dearly indeed. Just a second separating the top 9 in qualifying. Let's join our commentators, Martin and James.
So qualifying for the French Grand Prix here at Manicourt, and judging by free practice, it looked like the fight for pole was going to be a straight one between Renault and McLaren, but as ever in Formula One, it's a much more complicated picture, isn't it?
Yeah, there are an awful lot of politics and dramas going on just below the surface, and the drivers are being sucked into that. Numerous meetings going on, but they've had to keep their heads clear and get that single lap done.
Because of his problems in Indianapolis, Ralf Schumacher was first out in qualifying. He found a slippery track, and this lockup didn't help either. Ralf was second fastest in practice, but the conditions didn't work for him in qualifying, and he wound up 11th. David Coulthard was the first of the Michelin cars who withdrew at Indianapolis. He too found the track slippy. Despite aerodynamic updates from Red Bull, they're the slowest Michelin runner here. With Kimi Raikkonen forced to change engines before qualifying, this was a great opportunity for Juan Montoya to challenge for his first pole, but this mistake at 180 really cost him. There's a lot of questions about how much fuel Montoya's got in the car. He wound up just 8th on the grid. Williams came here with a substantially revised aerodynamic package, and although the computers may say it's working fine, it doesn't show on the stopwatch. Webber is 12th and Heidfeld 14th. Long faces all round. Takuma Sato have been quick all weekend, and BAR have worked hard on the car in high aerodynamic downforce configuration. The result was a very competitive package, and Sato on the best form this season so far. He was 4th on the grid and put the pressure on his teammate. World Championship leader Fernando Alonso has been the most consistent qualifier recently, despite all the pressure. With Raikkonen bound to take a 10th-place drop on the grid, this was a great chance for the Spaniard to capitalise. He held his nerve, and to the delight of a French crowd, he delivered the provisional pole lap. After Sato's excellent showing, Jenson Button knew he needed something special, but the Englishman just didn't have the speed of his teammate. Perhaps fuel load played a part in it, but Jenson was 0.4 of a second slower than Taku, and he took only 7th on the grid on a track he really enjoys. Jenson's going to have to work hard this afternoon to get the podium he so desperately wants ahead of next week's British Grand Prix. Kimi Raikkonen blew his engine spectacularly on Friday, and that meant a 10th-place drop on the grid. He knew this and attacked like crazy on his qualifying lap. With an upgraded engine and aerodynamics kit, McLaren is the standout car at the moment, but Kimi wound up 3rd, which became 13th after his penalty. Jarno Trulli has hustled the Toyota to the front of the grid on 3 occasions already this year, and this lap put him right back there. Formula One's most consistent qualifier over the season delivered for Toyota, missing out on a 2nd consecutive pole position by just a 10th of a second. Trulli was the last of the Indianapolis non-racers, and that meant the Minardis and the Jordans had a rare privilege of a late qualifying slot. They all pushed hard, but none more so than Christian Albers. What a moment! He almost threw it at the scenery, but skillfully managed to gather it all together. Well, the Bridgestone seemed to be struggling in the final part of the lap. Rubens Barrichello lost time there, but Michael Schumacher has started very brightly. Lately, he's opted to run an aggressive fuel load in qualifying to get himself at the front of the grid. And once again, he bought himself track position. third on the grid for the reigning world champion. But Renault had their pole at home, and the great friends Alonso and Trulli had the front row annexed. It was the 6th career pole for Spaniard Fernando Alonso, and with World Championship rival Kimi Raikkonen down in 13th, it was a perfect day for him and his French team.
All weekend has been very confident, but now starting first even more. So for tomorrow I don't see any reason to don't think in the victory.
I'm definitely aiming for podium, for another podium of this year for Toyota, but the race is long, anything can happen.
This place is one of the few where you can play around a little bit with tactics, but hopefully the others are stopping early and then we will gain.
It's no secret that Renault is going to be very quick and is the team to beat, but we hope we can do a better job. I mean, we will try very hard.
So another cracking qualifying job by Fernando Alonso, but Martin, Kimi knew he was going 10 places back on the grid. His strategy was adjusted accordingly. Can he come through and challenge today?
I'd be surprised if he takes the win, but his car is mighty through the long turn 2 at Estoril. So he'll be quick down the back straight and overtaking a lot of cars, I think, into the Adelaide hairpin. But the front of the grid may be just out of reach for him.
What about Montoya? We saw him making that mistake, maybe 2 or 3 tenths lost there, but he's still 7 or 8 tenths of a second slower than Raikkonen. It can't all be fuel. Why so slow?
Well, we better hope it is fuel. If he doesn't stop one less time than the front of the grid today, I'll be amazed he did a poor job.
It's strange because the McLaren seems a great car here.
Yeah, it's got good speed, but we've seen other cars that have been disappointing too. The Williams and the Red Bull are the tail enders of the budgeted teams. And certainly we were expecting great things of that Williams with the new aero package.
Yeah, both of them well budgeted, as you say. Jenson Button, can he grab the podium here today before Silverstone?
Yeah, his car looks great. Jenson should be in good form. He's got to pass his teammate first. He's ahead of him on the grid.
Look forward to it.
Manicourt, the French Grand Prix, 4.4 kilometres, that's 2 3/4 miles. It's a 70-lap race, a highly technical and very smooth racetrack. Let's take a look on board with pole sitter Fernando Alonso. This is a pressure lap with Renault at their home Grand Prix. Down to turn 1, he's going to shift up right on the apex, full throttle, no problem, thread the car through the small chicane into the heart of Estoril, turn 2. Lower speed 125 miles an hour, 165 before you reach the exit. That kills the front left tyre during the race. Bring it gently to the left-hand side for the heavy braking zone of Adelaide hairpin. Down 5 gears to just 50 miles an hour, lean on the curb on the exit, try to minimise the traction control for tremendous acceleration. Down to the Nürburgring chicane, about 160 miles an hour. Watch him thread the eye of the needle through there and begin to brake in a straight line initially, edging the car into the white line of the 180-degree corner. Straighten it as early as you can, turn at the last moment, sweep through the left-hander, but focus on the Imola chicane, 170 miles an hour, swoop down the hill, cut the chicane if you can, and bring it to the left-hand side for Chateau d'Eau. Wow, I've never seen a car turn in so well in that corner, sweeping downhill towards the end of the lap, up to 170 miles an hour. Big braking zone for Lycée. There's room to breathe on the exit initially, but then it tightens. Call the chiropractor. The last chicane curbs. Ow! As he lands, floors the throttle over the line, lifts immediately to save fuel for the race.
It's close up front, just half a second between the top 9 as Alonso claimed his second French pole for Renault. Truly on the front row for the 4th time this year. 3rd, Schumacher showed Ferrari form, just 1/10 off pole. 4th, Takuma Sato in the thick of it. 5th, Barrichello faded in the last sector. Visi lost momentum, 3/10 dropping him to 6th. Button 7th in the VAR. 8th, Montoya's McLaren suffered from an early qualifying slot. 9th, and happily completing the top 10, Massa and Villeneuve for Sauber. 11th, Ralf Schumacher's Toyota. 12th, Webber. 13th, Raikkonen, qualified 3rd, but his charge affected by a 10-place engine penalty. 14th, Heidfeld. 15th, Coulthard was too cautious. 16th, Klein, who crashed on Friday. 17th, Kartikeyan's Jordan. 18th, Friesacker. 19th, Montero's Jordan. And 20th, Christian Albers in the 2nd Minardi.
Tony, we're in the middle of nowhere here in France. Tough place to get to, but you're rewarded when you arrive. We've had great instances. Remember that one last year, final corner, Jarno Trulli taking a nap and Rubens Barrichello takes him.
I know, it was super. And Jarno had gone to sleep and he was heading for 3rd place on the podium. Rubens Barrichello had other ideas. Watch this again. The very last chicane coming up on the last lap steals that podium position. So important for Renault, but that was gone. And, of course, Flavio Briatore was absolutely livid afterwards, and I think that was a contributory factor to Jarno losing his job at Renault.
It was Tatar Trulli after that, wasn't it? 3 years ago, Michael Schumacher sealed the world title here, only because Kimi Räikkönen had some horrible luck when he was in the lead late on.
Yeah, Kimi had done a great job, and he was heading for his very first victory. There'd been no oil flags, and you can just see McNish's Toyota up there, which had dropped all the oil. And Kimi, a little bit of a rookie there, a little bit raw, didn't see anything, but wasn't aided by any flags, and we were livid by that. He just slid wide enough, and you can see Schumacher going through there to take the win in the World Championship. That was a great shame, but just showed you Kimi, you know, in his form, even then in 2002.
Takuma Sato's on the second row here, in shape to deliver. He will not want the engine to go like it did last year, though.
No, he wouldn't, but this is his best grid since last year on the European Grand Prix when he was on the front row. He's fourth, right alongside Michael Schumacher. He's right in the thick of it. Honda, of course, done a lot of work recently in Jerez with the chassis, and he's happy they've carried over all this development work to here.
Thanks, Tony. Well, for quite a while now, we've been telling you that BMW want to have a team of their own. Next season, they will have. BMW have bought Sauber, and that has implications for Williams and indeed for Jenson Button as well. Louise Goodman takes up the story.
The 6-year marriage between Williams and BMW has ended in divorce, with BMW opting to buy the Sauber team in order to take control of its own destiny from the start of 2006.
Competition has become so intense in Formula One that you can only be successful if your entire package is perfect in all its areas, and that is why we have decided to take responsibility on the whole package, not just the engine.
Peter Sauber has decided to relinquish control to guarantee sufficient investment to ensure the growth and long-term stability of his team and staff, and for other more personal reasons.
I'm 62 and I have to think about to stop. It's not a problem for me, but for this I think it's also a good solution.
Frank Williams might not be laughing, but he is putting on a brave face, insisting the split will not have any effect on the team's performance this season.
We both need to win for the rest of the year. It's very clear. A lot of money's been spent to do so.
But what of the future? What engines will Williams run next year? Contrary to rumours, Toyota's told ITV it doesn't have the capability to supply an extra team. Cosworth's keen to do a deal, but the company's small and lacks development budget, which leaves Honda.
We've had contact from Williams perhaps a month ago, but we just had initial discussions, nothing more than that.
Or paying for BMW engines.
If we stay with BMW, it'll be a very smooth continuation of what presently exists. And I believe that if we do change, if we were to change, that the way it would be handled would see, given the two professional bodies involved, reasonable transfer of information, sufficient to make us still competitive next year.
And what about the drivers? Mark Webber is confirmed at Williams for 2006.
I've been through tougher times before, and Frank's is a fantastic individual, and so with Patrick, you know, we've got to try and find a way to turn it into a way which we can get better results next year, even if it is with BMW or whatever.
Jenson Button has remained tight-lipped on the subject here in France. Williams has an option on his services for 2006, but will he be quite so keen to return to the team which gave him his Grand Prix debut if they don't have a works engine deal? At the moment, there are more questions than answers as far as Williams' future is concerned, but Frank isn't laying the blame for the uncertainty at BMW's door.
Well, Formula One is totally results-driven, and it's obvious to anybody competing in it if you don't deliver, you're going to pay the penalty eventually, and clearly we have disappointed BMW. That's how they view it, and that's entirely their decision, and they're truly entitled to it.
Tony, he is the ultimate F1 fighter. You chatted to Sir Frank this morning. He's absolutely determined to keep his team among the elite.
No question. I mean, he assured me that they will find an engine solution, that they won't lose sponsors. He said I was negative yesterday, but I was only being negative more about BMW. Why are they leaving behind such an elite Grand Prix team who've won 9 World Constructors' Championships, 7 World Championships for drivers? They are very special. BMW got a huge, tough job. Not only is it nearly quadrupling their budget, they've got to put 2 cultures together. It's much easier being an engine supplier, going to do the whole show together without that vital ingredient of the racers in Williams is going to be tough.
With Jenson Button now, shall we? He's down there with Ted Kravitz.
Yes, indeed. And Jenson, I know you're looking forward to Silverstone, but you've got this race to get through first.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good one. It's very, very hot out there at the moment. Circuit's at about 52, 54 degrees, so it's stonkingly hot, but I think it's going to be all right. You know, it's a race where I think we can be very strong.
What does that heat mean? Because it is hotter than Friday when you last did long runs on these tyres. So what's it going to mean for the tyres?
Well, it's going to be harder for the tyres. You know, the rubber's going to go down a lot quicker. There's going to be quite a bit of grip out there from the rubber, but from the heat, it's going to take it away again. So I think towards the end of the race, there's going to be a few people in tyre. Well, hopefully going to be having a lot of oversteer on the tyres. So we'll make a few places up there because I think we've got a very good strategy.
Have a good race. Thanks very much.
49 degrees, the latest track temperature, Manicourt in Burgundy. Pretty much the bull's eye of France. 6,000 Renault fans are here. When you rejoin us, Martin Brundle's going to be darting round the grid.
Well, Toyota tester Olivier made a guest appearance in the third car on Friday, but other than that, Olivier, not a single French driver on this grid.
Yeah, I know it's a shame. It's very difficult, but we need to accept this year. I hope so all the federation, everybody in F1 understood it's quite important because the French Grand Prix is full of spectators. I hope so next year somebody happen and somebody stand up to the Formula One.
80,000 spectators here today, I understand. I guess they're going to be cheering for the French team, for the Renault guys. Do you think they can get the win?
Well, I hope so. I mean, I think it's a very big event for Renault, but, you know, I'm working for Toyota. The one thing I want is Jarno win the race, so fight for the podium.
Thanks, Olivier.
Olivier Panis, we could have done with him in the Grand Prix. Toyota actually presented him with a car that he drove at Suzuka, his last driver for Toyota. Renault, 6,000 Renault employees are here filling 2 stands and supporting their man Fernando Alonso absolutely big time, Tony. But this is the busiest month in F1 history. 4 races in 5 weeks. How much of an effect will that have on Montoya and everybody else?
Well, I particularly want to see how it will affect Alonso. On the 2 weekends off he was meant to have, he was working, and I hope that we don't get into a burnout situation. But there are, 40 points up for grabs from the drivers, looking at Massa there, and 72 constructors' points as well. It's a very critical time in the championship.
Thank you, Tony. We're going to go down, well, not to the back of the grid, beyond the back of the grid. And Martin is poised. On you go, Martin.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, I'm right at the back of the grid, actually. There's an interesting story back here. I thought I might have outstayed my welcome at the front for a little while as well. But this is the finish line, actually. It's a displaced grid, so they can get the cars in, because it's straight out of this chicane, which I think is going to play a role in this afternoon's race. The 2 launch pads of the curbs. And then they aim the car over here with these quite significant curbs here. I'll put my mobile phone down so you can see that it's quite a tall curb onto this AstroTurf, followed by another curb, a rubber egg crate stuff full of gravel and earth, then onto some grasscrete. And that's the sort of pain they're giving themselves and their cars all through the Grand Prix. And as the tyres fade, Jenson Button referred to the tyres fading through the race. We could well see some spinners here today. Let's see. I thought they might find a nicer class of people down the back of the grid here. And they're obviously... where's your driver? Where is he? Let's have a quick word with man who's finished third. How are you doing? Obviously, you had the luxury of an open grid 2 weeks ago in Indianapolis. Situation normal today. How's your feeling?
It's back to reality here. Back to normal. I'm feeling all right. We have a lot of problems this weekend throughout the tests, but qualifying was very good. So the car seems pretty balanced. Good load of fuel, and looking forward for the race. Really push hard.
All right. Are you just literally racing the 2 Minardis and your teammate, or are you hoping to hang on to the back of the Red Bulls genuinely?
It always depends on the strategy. I think they're pretty heavy. It will be difficult to follow them here, to be honest. We're hoping with the new car to get close to them.
Okay, you're a legend now back in Portugal?
Well, more famous now, yeah.
Good stuff. Let's see if we can find Friesach. To my eternal shame, I'm not entirely sure what he looks like, so I should come down here more often, but he's sitting on the floor looking a bit lonely. We don't get sort of barged about back down here, do we? And we can't see the wood for the trees up the sharp end. But Patrick, Martin Brundle, ITV, British Television, you look like you've got a bit of time to talk to us. What, are you meditating down there or something?
No, just concentrating on the race and just focusing what I'm doing, what's happened in the first corner. You never know, so just really concentrating.
Now, the fact that in reality you're racing the Jordans and your teammate, surely you just take it easy through the first lap, making sure you don't collect other people's accidents, or are you flat out?
Just flat out. It's a race, so everything or nothing.
Now, you've worked hard to get into Formula One. My experience is it's even harder to stay here. It's a big pressure game, isn't it?
Yeah, it's always, especially to get into Formula One, it's really hard, and then to do the work there and stay there. And of course I want to move up to some better teams and try to do a good job and just try to focus on what I'm doing.
Now, we know the track temperature is 49 degrees. Isn't your Botticelli a bit hot sitting there?
Yeah, yesterday and the day before was really cold, so it's going to be quite tough for the tires.
Right, good luck. Right, let's see if we can find the Red Bulls at the back of the grid, surprisingly. Let's just have a quick word with Christian Klein. He's a nice little guy. He was charging round on a motocross bike last night. Surprised he didn't break anything. Christian, a quick word. What's this thing here?
It's a big cooling vest, so we stay a bit cooler. And it's quite good before this go in the car to keep your body temperature low.
Well, do you take it off then? You take it off before you get in the car?
No, definitely I take it off, otherwise I wouldn't fit in the seat and the steering wheel would be right on my chest.
What are you doing back here on the grid? What's the problem? We thought you'd be faster.
Yeah, I mean, we had quite a bit problems in qualifying. We were in free practice quite quick and we're up at 10th place around. But I think definitely we are quicker in the race. We have a reasonably good balance on the car and we try to get closer to the front, but it's difficult from the starting position.
Have a good one. Right, Christian, lots of dramas. You're a Michelin team boss. What's going to happen? Is there going to be a huge eruption in the next few weeks, or do you think it's going to calm down a bit?
Well, I hope for Formula One it all dies down a bit. You know, the tyre looks okay this weekend. Michelin, I think, understand what the problem is now, and hopefully there won't be a reoccurrence.
OK, I'm just going to try and grab DC. I'll catch you another time before he gets in the car. We've got very little time. Can you run that fast backwards, Andy? DC, some stuff on the websites today about a bit of a spat between the drivers and some various phone calls. What's the story on that?
Well, unfortunately, it's like all these things, people get half the information and rumours spread, but the reality is that the drivers obviously have some concerns, and we have a meeting scheduled with the FIA president on Friday at Silverstone, so we'll discuss that then behind closed doors.
OK, I'm sure you've got other things on your mind at the moment. The old hands device is going on. Skid lid closely behind it. Back to you, Jim.
Thank you very much indeed, Martin. And Martin, in common with one or two of us, wearing the badge backing the bid for London for the 2012 Olympics. That decision to be made on Wednesday here in France as the French Air Force buzz over the 80,000 fans. We are in the middle of enemy territory, of course. The Paris bid to the fore here. Martin moving down the back of the grid there. Tony, what are your impressions about what we have coming up in the French Grand Prix? How about the start? Always a crucial area.
Yes, it is very crucial indeed. I mean, it is a race of endurance today as much as anything else. The drivers' fitness will be tested, of course, the tyres will be tested, the engines will be tested. But we've also got to look out for Ferrari because they're back in the mix, I think quite big style. Because Ross Brawn told us, 2 weeks ago in North America, no, we're not going to do any more development on this car. What did they do last week in Barcelona? Massive development. They've got new diffuser, new nose, new tyres, an engine revamp, and I expect their race pace to be very, very good, and I wouldn't be surprised if a Ferrari or two Ferraris are up on the podium.
Thank you, Tony. 42 points over the last 3 races for Ferrari and Michael Schumacher in particular. Well, after the farce in the USA, let me just assure you we have a complete 20-car grid here at Manicourt. They all intend to go the full distance as well. 70 laps of the technical and super smooth circuit. We aren't expecting any bottles of the local Burgundy or anything else to be thrown on the track. 6,000 Renault employees expecting that man, Fernando Alonso, the pole sitter, to give them a reason for a proper celebration. Beware Trulli, he's totally at home. Sato in the mood to make an impression, and so is that man Michael Schumacher, 7 times a winner at Manicourt. Formula One is about to get back on the right track at the French Grand Prix. you're with ITV Sport on a beautiful July afternoon at Manicourt, slap bang in the middle of the country, staging the French Grand Prix for the 15th time. James Allen and Martin Brundle poised in the commentary box. Now, James, we need a good one here.
Dead right, Jim. We certainly do. And you have to say also that apart from Indianapolis, this has been the best season certainly that I've covered in 15 years of Formula One, and hopefully this afternoon normal service will be resumed. Well, the last time a Renault car won the French Grand Prix was back in 1983 when Alain Prost, who's here this afternoon, won at Paul Ricard in the south of France. And Fernando Alonso was still in nappies. 22 years later, he has a great chance of giving Renault another win on home soil. The Spaniard really has been flawless all weekend. His task was made a lot easier on Friday when, in the land of the constitutional votes, Kimi Raikkonen's engine decided to vote non. Blew up, and that meant a 10-place drop on the grid for him, regardless of whatever he did in qualifying. It was a super lap by Raikkonen, but it put him third on the grid. That dropped to 13th, and we will be interested to see how he comes through the field here this afternoon. We'll be talking about the tactical considerations, because for sure those will be many. But he's 22 points behind Alonso in the World Championship. Doesn't want to give too much more away here this afternoon. There is Alonso, feeling very confident here. We've got an 80,000 crowd, and many of them, particularly in the main grandstand, are wearing the Renault colours and supporting the national team, particularly with no French driver on the grid for the first time in 40 years. There's Michael Schumacher, certainly Ferrari at the moment, the form team in Formula One, leaving aside their uncontested victory a couple of weeks ago at Indianapolis. They've managed to amass an average of 14 points a race for the last 3 Grand Prix, and now they are within striking distance in the Constructors' Championship of Renault. And Michael Schumacher, a win here this afternoon would certainly put him in the driver's title race as well, probably ahead of Raikkonen. There you can see the grid then. Schumacher third, Sato fourth, BAR Honda making the car work a lot better now in the high downforce configuration than it did at Nürburgring last month. And after the 2 very fast races in Indianapolis and Canada, BAR looked to have carried the momentum through from those 2 races here in France. And that's good news for British race fans, because it means that Jenson Button and BAR Honda are likely to be competitive next week in Silverstone, because if you're quick in Manicourt, generally speaking aerodynamically, it means you're going to be quick at Silverstone as well. There's the back end of the grid. Martin was mixing with them. As you said, a better class of person at the back, but it's a reality check for Montero, isn't it? On the podium in Indianapolis last week, back of the grid in Manicourt 2 weeks later.
Yes, it's pretty tight through turn 1 too. It really is only one line, and then we see a very small chicane heading down to that turn 2 again, one by one in reality. So normally we see a few people bouncing along the curbs, a wheel in the dirt, because they know that the best chance of overtaking is on that first lap. Then the mad dash down to the Adelaide hairpin for the first time. It's all getting tense out there, isn't it? Michael Schumacher now in a position to put pressure on Alonso and Raikkonen, both on the track and in the various drivers' meeting. He's certainly set himself aside from the rest of them at the moment, Michael. But he's absolutely awesome at playing the mind games. He's been here before. Alonso hasn't. Raikkonen kind of has, when he finished second in the World Championship and was a contender, but for a few reliability issues. And well, we're going to see, I think, an interesting race unfolding with a lot of internal pressures going on there between the key players in this championship. Barrichello not too far behind either, of course.
Yeah, Michael Schumacher, a veteran of 220 Grand Prix, 36 years of age. Fernando Alonso, just 23 years of age. He's competed in just 58. If he wins here this afternoon, he'll have won 6 of 59, which is not a bad strike rate. Similar sort of strike rate to what Michael Schumacher had in the early 1990s when he was driving for the same team as Alonso is in now. In those days it was called Benetton Renault. Now it's just called Renault. So the temperature, you could see the graphic a moment ago said that the track temperature has risen now to 51 degrees. There's Jarno Trulli on the front row of the grid for the 4th time this season. Tremendous effort from him, and Toyota once again managing to keep the momentum going from the early part of the season. Although you have to say that Trulli himself has only scored 1 point in the last 4 Grand Prix, so he was second in the World Championship for a long time. He's now dropped back to 5th, so he needs a big result here this afternoon as well. A lot of men out there with an awful lot to prove.
Both Ferraris chose to stop at the back of the grid and do a clutch systems check, so the engineers can just check the software and clearances on the grid. Others do it at the end of the pit lane. Now they actually get slightly more realistic data on the grid itself, and they're still fettling those cars to make sure they get away for that all-important start.
Well, everybody clearly away on the parade lap. A lot of new parts on the cars for the eagle-eyed amongst you. Many teams tend to bring new aerodynamic parts and often engine parts as well to the French Grand Prix. It's the midpoint in the Formula One World Championship, the 10th round of 19. There you can see the championship situation with, look how close Schumacher is now to Raikkonen after that result in Indianapolis. Quite easily leapfrog him here this afternoon. Ferrari have made a lot of changes to their car and they really seem to have worked. It's a much more competitive package now. You can get more out of the lap with a tyre on a single lap. It's racing well. Renault have also improved their car, McLaren too. Williams, though, through some new stuff at the car, doesn't seem to have improved much on the stopwatch, so an awful lot of people working very hard behind the scenes at this stage of the season.
My read of qualifying is that the first 7 are on a 3-stopper, Montoya 8 being the first on 2 stops, but people with more information than me in the paddock saying no, they're all 2-stopping at the front. Just it'll be a very short first stint, maybe in lap 16 or something like that. And that will surprise me. I thought 3-stop was the fast way. Michael won it on a 4-stopper last year. But of course, completely different then, because you could bolt a new set of tyres on and gain some advantage from what is a very short pit stop. It's a tiny pit lane here, very short. So it's the least amount of time lost at any Grand Prix circuit for a pit stop, but we'll have to wait and see, won't we?
Well, it's interesting because they don't get new tyres. Obviously the tyres wear down. The lap times actually, funnily enough, start to come up towards the end of the stint, which didn't used to happen with the tyres we had up to last season. And in fact, there is nothing to choose in time between a 2-stop and a 3-stop strategy. Obviously 3 will only work if you're at the front of the grid. You can get clear air and drive away. Certainly the feeling is that many of the cars at the front might stop between laps sort of 17 and 21, that kind of thing, and they can either do 3 or 2 stops here this afternoon. For sure, the 2 McLarens, Montoya 8th, Raikkonen 13th, are going to run a 2-stop strategy and try and pick off cars as they dive into the pits. I said earlier on it's going to be a tactical battle here this afternoon, but it's also a battle of passion. There's an awful lot to drive for here as Alonso takes up his pole position slot. He was on pole here last year, remember, had to cede the victory to Michael Schumacher's Ferrari. He just wasn't strong enough on the day. But here today he certainly is strong enough. He's going for gold.
Well, they all creep round to the dummy grid, but now, as they come into the grid formation itself, they're happy to switch the traction control off, floor the throttle, heat up the rear tyres, and just waste a little bit of that fuel. It's worth it for them to help them get away.
2 great friends on the front row of the grid, Fernando Alonso and Jarno Trulli, from their days together in the Renault team, but here they're racing against each other. Trulli's pointed towards Alonso. When the red lights go out, we'll be racing at Magny-Cours. The French Grand Prix is go! Loads of smoke flies up from the back as Alonso sweeps majestically into turn 1. Schumacher, it looks like, is into his 3rd place behind Jarno Trulli with Barrichello 4th. Takuma Sato looks like he's lost out there. He was 4th on the grid. He's at least 5th. Fisichella has held place. He was 6th on the grid. Looks like he's still 6th place now. And Alonso's getting away. Any sign of Michael Schumacher trying to attack the back of Jarno Trulli as the Red Bulls make their way through the field.
Yes, I think Barrichello's leapfrog Sato, and also Montoya looks like he's got himself ahead of Jenson Button, and Raikkonen making his way through the pack. He's shown P12, having started 13th, made up 1 slot away from the start.
Alonso leads, Trulli 2nd, Michael Schumacher is in 3rd place, Barrichello 4th, Sato is 5th, 6th is Fisichella. We're riding on board with Kimi Raikkonen, who's got 1 place up on the grid. He's in 12th now from 13th at the start. Juan Montoya, as we said, is up to 7th, Button down to 8th, Massa 9th, Villeneuve 10th, Ralf Schumacher 11th, and then it's Raikkonen.
Well, how well behaved was that? Most of them haven't had a race now for 3 weeks, of course, having not performed 2 weeks ago in Indianapolis, and they certainly were pretty cautious around there. You can lose a race on the first lap, but you can't really win it. But look at Alonso scampering away. 1.4 seconds is his lead, and the 2 Ferraris in line. Barrichello's dropped off there a little bit because he went wide, very wide, in the 180 corner on the first lap. Coulthard maintains 15th place.
Well, Raikkonen is looking very aggressive on the back of Villeneuve. We're cutting now to a replay of the start. As Martin said, very neat and tidy, everybody away.
Yeah, as you can just see the 4th car there, Barrichello pushing Sato back. But the Ferraris haven't got that initial grip. We're now watching, we're on board with Sato. We'll see Barrichello hold it around the outside. Sato getting out of the throttle quite early there, has to be said. Alonso, though, just strolling away at the front. That looks very easy.
That was interesting with Sato. How do you read that? You say he got out of the throttle early. Do you think he was a little bit cautious?
Well, I think he realised that Barrichello had, and Christian Klein pulling out of the Grand Prix for Red Bull. He was in P17, and well, that ends a pretty dismal week for him. He ended up in the barriers very heavily on Friday. Poor grid slot, and now the first retirement of the Grand Prix. 19 runners remaining.
His second retirement of the season so far, and Red Bull Racing's fifth. So reliability, you wouldn't say a problem, but certainly this early in the Grand Prix, highly unusual to be pulling off. These cars are so reliable now. Here we go then, lap 3. Alonso leading Trulli by almost 3 seconds. It's been a tremendous opening stint here by Fernando Alonso, lapping in the low 1:17s. Everybody else is in the 18s and 19s. He really is putting the hammer down here, trying to get some clear air to make his strategy work for him this afternoon. Trulli second, Michael Schumacher third, almost 4 seconds behind Alonso. Now Barrichello is tucked up behind Schumacher in fourth, then fifth is Sato, sixth Fisichella, 6 seconds now behind his teammate, the race leader. Seventh, Montoya. I think he'll be challenging Fisichella fairly soon. And Raikkonen, I can tell you, we didn't see it, but he's passed Villeneuve. So Raikkonen already, after just 2 laps, has gone from 13th to 10th. He's now right on the back of Felipe Massa in the other Sauber.
Jarno Trulli is, in a way, sort of backing the field up, although the Ferraris are not exactly hustling him. They're all within about 0.8 of a second of each other, just in that dirty air zone, which hurts them badly through corners like Turn 2 Estoril. This is Kimi Raikkonen making the pass for 10th place on Jacques Villeneuve, on board with Raikkonen now, and he's coming up behind the second Sauber of Felipe Massa.
Well, we're hearing from our F1 ITV pit crew. Christian Klein has said that the engine simply switched off in that Red Bull Racing car, currently using the Cosworth engine, but they're already starting to talk very seriously with Ferrari about next year's V8. That's what they will be using along with the Ferrari Works team, and they've bought themselves the right to call themselves Red Bull Racing Ferrari, which certainly adds something to the cachet of the Ferrari engine deal. Saw Gunther Steiner this morning, technical director of Red Bull Racing, in an earnest meeting with Paolo Martinelli, the engine boss of Ferrari. So they're doing forward planning already, and it's only early July.
Yes, it must be difficult for them. Their Michelin runners caught up, and Bridgestone and Ferrari have definitely put themselves over to one side. So Red Bull there with a foot very much in both camps. We'll see how that one plays out. But Alonso is just flying. He's 4 seconds ahead. He's a second and 3/4 faster than his teammate Fisichella, who's down in 6th place, albeit in a bit of turbulent air. And it's like he's in a different race, frankly.
Yeah, you've seen it before with Fernando Alonso. His ability to push from lights to flag without making mistakes. We saw a mistake in Montreal, but it was a very, very uncharacteristic and unusual one from Fernando Alonso, because he really is, from lights to flag, as fast as anybody in Formula One. I remember talking towards the end of last season with some of the Renault engineers, and they said, I think Fisichella will get a shock when he sees just how fast Alonso is during the course of a race distance. And maybe Alonso will get a shock when he sees how fast Fisi is over a single lap. But as things have turned out, it's been Alonso all the way ever since that first round victory in Australia for Fisichella, a rain-affected weekend that disadvantaged Alonso and advantaged Fisichella. It's all been Alonso ever since, and certainly at the moment at Magny-Cours, it's all Alonso. As we work lap 5, he has a 5-second lead over Jarno Trulli, but behind Trulli is a big train of cars that want to come through, and in it is Schumacher, Barrichello, Sato, Fisichella, Montoya, Button, Massa, and Kimi Raikkonen in 10th. Lap 7 of the French Grand Prix here at Magny-Cours, right slap bang in the middle of rural France. The first of 4 races in 5 weeks. Never before in the 55-year history of Formula One have we had such a concentration of races in such a short period of time. It's going to be hard work for everybody. Fatigue is certainly going to play a part with the mechanics and the drivers and everybody in Formula One. But one thing we mustn't lose sight of in this is that there are 40 Drivers' World Championship points up for grabs this month, and 72 Constructors' Championship points up for grabs this month. And with the Constructors being so close as it is at the moment, with Renault on 76 points and both McLaren and Ferrari on 63, an awful lot can change during the month of July. Alonso's leading the Grand Prix by almost 10 seconds now. Trulli is definitely holding up the cars behind him, which include Schumacher, Barrichello, Sato, Fisichella, Montoya. Michael Schumacher's made no real effort to try and pass Jarno Trulli at the moment. And meanwhile, Alonso is driving away. It's rather reminiscent of Hungary a couple of years ago when Mark Webber in second place in the Jaguar held everybody up and Alonso was able to scamper away for his first victory.
Yes, I think we're seeing here the 2005 era regulations where the drivers have been saying it's more difficult to follow. You're really seeing it now because from second through to 12th there's little more than a second between each and every one of them. But I think also this race is going to change dramatically in the last 20 laps when we begin to see the effect of tyre wear, particularly on the left front through that long Estoril corner. Ted has news.
I'm down at Red Bull, Martin, and the boys have looked on the telemetry and they see that the fuel pressure fell and then disappeared completely on Klein's car. So that's why he said the engine cut out, because it just didn't have any fuel going to it. They don't know why yet until they get the car back.
Yeah, there's I think it's a little mechanical pump driven off the front of the engine that sounds like, what can happen is the little drive shaft in there breaks, maybe something like that, and then the pressure just fades away and the engine stops, and it's such a massive amount of high pressure to make these cars function.
That's the thing that blew my mind the other day when that whole thing came out about BAR and their fuel system, was how much pressure the fuel is under going into the engine. I couldn't believe it's like 70 bar or something.
Yeah, that's how they get the power. They atomise the fuel and the high revs, and that's when you think it's a 3 litre with 900 horsepower. That's 300 horsepower per litre. You imagine a road car, a 1 litre road car with 300 horsepower. I think it tells you how stressed and how finely tuned these engines are at 19,000 RPM.
Well, it's certainly endurance and not a sprint, Formula 1 2005 style. It used to be a dash between pit stops. Mike Gascoigne there, technical director of Toyota, looking on as his drivers currently second, Jarno Trulli, and Ralf Schumacher down in 12th place. Certainly an awful lot of development been thrown at these cars. Everybody though, Martin, look, as they're coming out of that corner, you highlighted that, and they're really struggling to get the car straightened up on that exit curve, aren't they?
Yes, it just struck me how slippery it is out there. It's like a carpet basically in your front lounge, and they have to use it, otherwise they're too tight and slow through the chicane. Alonso's lead now 13 seconds. And he's 17 seconds ahead of his teammate in 6th. This is the field spread thing we've been talking about more and more this season. Alonso's got away. Trulli is running his own race. I just sense, James, a little bit of okay, let's get this first phase of the Grand Prix over. Long way to go yet, and we'll go racing a little bit later on, but none of them can respond to Alonso. I bet they're all sitting and hoping he'll be pitting anytime soon.
Well, it's interesting because he's 23 seconds now ahead of Kimi Raikkonen, his main title rival, who is in 10th place. That's more than a pit stop ahead of Kimi Raikkonen. So if he is 3 stopping and Raikkonen is 2 stopping, Raikkonen will not go past him in the first round of pit stops. Alonso will easily be able to rejoin in front of him. So we're certainly expecting Raikkonen, as the course of this race goes on, to cut his way very quickly through the field, rather in the way that Michael Schumacher did at Imola, if you remember. He was held up in the early phase of the Grand Prix by a number of cars, but once he was released, he was unbelievably quick, and he came up to the back of race leader Fernando Alonso in the closing stages for one of the most thrilling climaxes we've seen for many years. Quite possible we could have a similar situation here this afternoon, but Alonso does seem to be getting away a little bit at the moment. Raikkonen will be concerned about that. Alonso leading 14 seconds then over Trulli. Schumacher, Barrichello, Sato and Fisichella all tucked up behind. Lap 13 of the French Grand Prix. You're riding on board with Takuma Sato in the BR Racing Honda. He is currently in 5th place, 20 seconds behind race leader Fernando Alonso, and his teammate Jenson Button is down in 8th place, 3 places behind Sato, 25 seconds behind Alonso, so nowhere near his teammate at the moment. You can see Sato, who's been very quick here all weekend really. He had the edge on Jenson Button throughout the weekend, got him in qualifying yesterday. We're getting close to the first round of pit stops for the 3 stoppers. Sometime in the next 3 or 4 laps we'd expect some of them to come in, and one of them was expected to be Jarno Trulli, perhaps in the late teens of laps. That would certainly appeal very much as a concept to Michael Schumacher, who is tucked up behind Trulli and at the moment losing quite a lot of time to Alonso, who continues to lap in the 1:16s. Trulli has yet to break out of the 1 minute 18s, and that's allowing Alonso to scamper away. I heard, interestingly, the German papers reporting Michael Schumacher is building himself a £17 million castle on the shores of Lake Geneva in Switzerland, where he's lived for a while now, with space for 25 cars in the underground car park, a huge tower with an office in it, and lakes in the back garden and all the rest of it. And I think he'd give his kingdom now for an opportunity to pass Jarno Trulli, wouldn't he?
Yes, that's probably just for his trophies and his dogs, I would imagine, and it'll also be pocket money if it's 17 million quid. Alonso leading seconds then, and well, we talked about this aerodynamic thing for 2005. I think the front wings are badly affected by the turbulent air, which is why we've got everybody sort of line astern, can't appear to make any moves. I've always felt strongly that the aerodynamics or the downforce should come from underneath the car, from the ground effects and the way that the bottom of the car is presented to the racetrack. Get them back slick tyres. And it seems to have been going the other way to me. They've cut away the underfloor and made the downforce dependent much more on the upper surfaces. And they, I believe, they're much more susceptible to the turbulent and very hot air cascading off the car in front. And I think for the first time this year we're really seeing that at its most dramatic.
Friesacher there, we saw the Minardi driver who was running last on the road, 19th of the 20 starters. We've lost Christian Klein with some sort of fuel pressure problem on his engine. It looked like some problems also for Friesacher in that pit stop. So he's now rejoined the racetrack, but he lost an awful lot of time there. Teammate Christian Albers did manage to get himself up in front of the Jordan of Thiago Monteiro off the start, but he's dropped back down to 18th place now.
Both Ferraris are quite slow under braking down at the Adelaide hairpin. There's a speed trap right there, so it shows up. If you're a bit early on the brakes, you're actually dramatically slower through that speed trap than the other cars, and it's interesting to see how much Sato could close. You tend to get a bit of a concertina effect at the slow corners anyway, and the driver in front is always going to be on the throttle a car length ahead of you. Toyota in the pit lane for Jarno Trulli, so he'll be the first to blink. They're on lap 16 at the moment, but certainly if anybody gets near that Ferrari, they're going to have to find a way to brake a little bit later. But BAR in the pit lane too, so Sato must have gone in. He has, because he's out of the picture. Now, if Trulli comes in, I think you're going to see Michael Schumacher really flying. Then we're going to find out where the pace is. Trulli has continued on. It's Ralf Schumacher that's pitted in the Toyota at the back of your picture there. But then Michael Schumacher's just got to get on with it. He's now 22 seconds behind Alonso. And we're going to find out if it's about turbulence or if they're just actually doing the same lap speed.
Yeah, the interesting thing is Michael Schumacher up the front of the grid. Certainly the times that the Ferrari was setting during the practice session wouldn't suggest it had that kind of pace as Ralf Schumacher exits in the Toyota. So I wonder how much more fuel than the Toyota Michael Schumacher has actually got. The guy to keep an eye on now is definitely going to be Juan Montoya, who's now gone up to 7th place with Sato, 6th place with Sato, having made his pit stop. And Montoya definitely would appear to have more fuel in his car, as would Kimi Raikkonen, who's now up to 9th place, and hoping that Felipe Massa is soon going to pit in the Sauber, because he's been unable to get past him for 16 laps. There's Thiago Monteiro, podium in Indianapolis, currently running in 17th place before he made that stop. Here's Trulli, final corner. Is this the pit in for him? No, it isn't. He carries on for another lap. He's going to have done 17, 18 complete lap time. So he's gone further into this Grand Prix than a lot of people in the paddock expected him to.
I'd imagine there'll be a few choice German words underneath the Schubert helmet there of Michael Schumacher as well. He really needs Trulli to pit because he can't overtake him. And he knows he needs some pace at this point in the Grand Prix. If they come in together, that's going to be... that's going to finish his day, I think.
Well, it's not inconceivable, Martin. I must admit, I had a rather cryptic conversation. They always are cryptic when you're talking about what strategy everyone's running, and no one really wants to give too much away. But I got the impression that Trulli had 19 or 20 laps worth of fuel in this car, and we'll see whether that is the case. I don't think Michael Schumacher's going to have an awful lot more than that. I reckon Alonso probably 21, 22 laps. So it's certainly all to play for between these two. And it's, meanwhile, Alonso making hay while the sun shines very beautifully here in Magny-Cours. Track temperature 52 degrees, air temperature a lovely 30, and Louise Goodman is down the pits.
Yeah, just been down to Minardi. We saw the mechanics having a good look at Friesacher's car when it came in. They noticed on the telemetry that his gearbox temperature was running high. What they were doing was they were checking the intake for the gearbox oil cooler just to see if any debris had got in there, and that was what was making the temperatures rise, but it all looks okay now.
So 19 runners remaining then, with Friesacher back out on the track. Only Christian Klein in the Red Bull, who stopped with lack of fuel pressure, as Rubens Barrichello pits from 4th place, the first Ferrari in. Alonso then had every bit as much fuel as the majority of the others, at least, and his lead of 25 seconds is pure, raw, brilliant pace.
Yep, it's all him and the car working beautifully together in harmony as Rubens Barrichello rejoins. He was 4th. We'll have to wait and see where he's going to come back. It'll be somewhere around 10th or 11th. He'll be behind, certainly, Kimi Raikkonen, that's for sure. Raikkonen then moving up to 7th, Montoya up to 5th, picking their way through the field as these cars all come into pit. We're expecting Jenson Button will probably pit fairly soon, Michael Schumacher, Jarno Trulli as well, and that will release the McLarens.
This is a curious racetrack. I drove here for 2 years with Ligier, whose factory is right on turn 1. We did thousands of laps. We spent all Grand Prix weekend fine-tuning and fettling your car, and it felt good. You qualified well. And then you go into the race, and it's like, what is this? Where did this come from? How did I end up with a car that's so bad? Maybe track temperature changes, 52 degrees at the moment. But you turn into Estoril Corner on lap 2 or lap 3, and it's like it just wants to carry on like a super tanker. And it's a really curious racetrack as Michael Schumacher pits, Trulli too, so they are in at identical times. Will they try and short film Michael to get him out in front of the Toyota?
Well, if he takes the pleasure now, he'll take the pain later on from having to pit, but he wants to clear air. That was a very quick stop from the Ferrari team, Michael Schumacher. Trulli looks like he's taking a bit more fuel on. Schumacher's making his way down the pit lane now. He'll be behind. Trulli will be behind Michael Schumacher, I believe, as they go out. There you are, you saw Michael Schumacher in the distance. He's jumped him at the first round of pit stops, but the price he's paid is that he's carrying less fuel than ideally would want to, perhaps, at this stage. It's a 3-stop strategy, I believe, for Michael Schumacher. Williams in then, making some adjustments there to the front of Nick Heidfeld's car. He pitted from 13th place, but the important headline here is that Schumacher is released, and he can now start to get on with his business.
Surely Trulli's gone to a 2-stopper with that. It was a lot of fuel, unless we didn't see it, unless they had a rig problem getting the rig on. Trulli's changed strategy at this point in the Grand Prix. Michael looks firmly set for a 3-stopper, doesn't he? And now we're going to see his true pace.
Yeah, the interesting thing about this racetrack is you don't lose very much time by making a pit stop, which tends to lead you towards thinking about stopping more often, perhaps. It takes less out of the tyres if you don't carry as much weight around at any one time. Renault getting ready then for one of its 2 drivers. Nothing much to choose between the 2 strategies. Let's just see what Fisichella does. From 2nd place then at this stage, Jenson Button is also in the BAR Honda from 4th place.
I hate this pit lane, it's so narrow, it's scary to be down there. They had to change the fuel rigs. The problem with his primary fuel rig, away he goes very, very close to the Jenson Button's BAR, and he's lost a place.
Well, he's lost 2 because he lost one on the racetrack to Juan Montoya as well, who's still going strongly out there. And so that was a costly moment for Giancarlo Fisichella, who's had all the bad luck, really, for Renault this season. A series of retirements, and here again, a technical problem impedes him. Mark Webber exits. He was in 10th place before he made that stop. Not a competitive weekend, this, for the Williams BMW team. Here's the race leader and championship leader in for his first stop, Ted Kravitz.
Well, they've reset the fuel rigs. Let's hope they work this time. Yes it does. And indeed, they're adjusting the front tyre pressures on Alonso. Good stop by the Renault boys, adjusting the tyre pressures on Fernando Alonso's front tyres. So, wow, he wasn't happy with the balance. He could go even quicker.
Yes, I mean, he had a 29-second advantage, so there's no need for him to change strategy. Surely he's sticking with a 2-stopper. And we're now seeing Raikkonen still out there, still on the same fuel. And it looks like his was the second standout lap of qualifying, because Alonso's was surely the standout lap. But remember, Raikkonen placed 3rd and then took a 10-place drop because of an engine change. So the McLarens are fast. Now we're going to see them coming through the pack.
Alonso leads Montoya, Raikkonen 3rd, Michael Schumacher 4th, Jarno Trulli in 5th place, 6th Barrichello, 7th Sato, 8th Button, 9th David Coulthard, who's yet to stop. Obviously, he went with quite a heavy fuel load in qualifying yesterday, which is probably explains quite a big part of why he was 15th on the grid in the Red Bull Racing car. Giancarlo Fisichella, after that problem with the refuelling rig, has dropped down to 10th place. So that's been very costly for him. Massa is 11th, a long, long way back. He's made a stop too behind Raikkonen, who has yet to make his stop. Raikkonen now in 3rd place. Villeneuve is 12th. Ralf Schumacher 13th. Not really making any kind of impression on this Grand Prix here this weekend, with his teammate having been running at the front. So surprising for Ralf on a track where he started twice from pole, a winner here as well. But it just isn't happening for Ralf this weekend. But it's certainly starting to happen now for the McLaren drivers. Montoya is second. As we were in Montreal, he's in front of his team lead. Sure, he doesn't consider him to be a leader. Kimi Raikkonen. They're on what appear to be similar strategies. Raikkonen obviously is the point man as far as the World Championship's concerned, but as far as Montoya's concerned, he's got a winning car that he's yet to do, and he wants to start right here, right now.
Montoya was 3/4 of a second faster than Raikkonen, but I have a feeling Raikkonen passed one of the Jordans on that lap, so it wouldn't be a true representation of his potential. They're running second and third at the moment on a clear two-stopper, so they're going to come into play as the Grand Prix unfolds, no doubt about it. Alonso leads by 11 seconds. He has stopped. Coulthard finally pits from 9th place. Alonso leads Montoya by 11 seconds. Raikkonen just 3.3 behind. Michael Schumacher, who has stopped, a further 14 and runs 4th at the moment.
So when are the two-stopping McLarens going to come in and make their pit stop? There's almost contact there between the Williams and the David Coulthard's Red Bull coming out of the pit lane. He didn't cross the white line. What he did was entirely legitimate, but he very nearly collided with Nick Heidfeld. They're racing each other for position. That was for 15th place. For 14th place, and they very nearly hit each other.
Yeah, this was absolutely. The two Williams and Coulthard have been very much nose to tail since the start of this Grand Prix, and Heidfeld knew he had to squeeze David out. No reason why he shouldn't. So it's a tough game out there, and Coulthard almost running wide with it, but just tippy-toed around the outside. That's what it's all about.
So when are the two McLarens going to make their stops? Well, you're expecting them in around about lap 25, which is in sort of 3 or 4 laps' time, something along those lines. And to maintain their competitiveness, they're going to need to put the hammer down a little bit. There's a huge traffic jam down there at the Adelaide hairpin involving Rubens Barrichello, Takuma Sato as well involved in that, and Jarno Trulli.
So what's going on down here? It's Barrichello who was having a run at Sato. Button is just behind them, and it looks like Sato took the place back again, back up to P6. Michael runs a bit ahead of them. He's 4th, and now a full 10 seconds ahead of Jarno Trulli, who we know filled his car up more heavily. But Michael is now, where is he? Down in the 1:17s with his higher fuel load and lapping at the same pace as Alonso. So Trulli was holding them up.
Certainly was, but the two McLarens are lapping much faster. They're lapping in the 1:16s. Michael Schumacher the high 1:17s. At this rate, the two McLarens should be able to stop and rejoin in front of Michael Schumacher. That's what they're working towards. They want to try and get themselves back out in front of that Ferrari after the first round of pit stops to make this strategy work for them. If they can do that, then they're in the hunt this afternoon. They're only perhaps 2 or 3 laps away from their stop now. These are crucial laps for Montoya and Kimi Raikkonen, and they're both pushing very, very hard indeed. Both of them have just set their fastest first sector of the Grand Prix so far, almost identical, 24.4 seconds first sectors.
We've got a serious race unfolding here. Don't think it's just at the moment, because of course Alonso, we believe, is going to stop 2 more times, and so are the McLarens. And so, and they're only 10 or 12 seconds apart, with the McLarens absolutely flying in clear air. This is a tough race now through the second half, no doubt about it. And as you say, I think Michael Schumacher, Trulli and co will be coming under pressure too.
Yeah, they certainly were. Michael Schumacher was held up by Jarno Trulli for the first 18 or so laps of this Grand Prix. That allowed the two stopping McLarens, Montoya and Raikkonen, to keep those guys in touch, even though they're on a different strategy. Theoretically, on a more open Grand Prix, they'd have dropped behind Michael Schumacher. It didn't happen here. Raikkonen sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix so far, 1:16.434. That is absolutely flying on. It's about 2/10 faster than anything Alonso managed in his first stint. He's getting quite close to his first stop, is Kimi Raikkonen, and he's now got an 18-second margin over Michael Schumacher. It's not quite enough to make the stop and rejoin in front. It's going to be very close.
Alonso's lead down to just 8.3 seconds now, and he's going to be very surprised to get the hurry up shortly, because that's what Renault are going to have to tell him. OK, Fernando, you've got to start pushing harder. And McLaren team getting ready for their first scheduled stop.
Which of the two drivers is it going to be? Raikkonen is again on another flyer. Fastest first sector of anybody so far. This is lap 25 out of 70. Long way to go still in this Grand Prix, and we haven't even started to talk about the damage of the rear tyres and how that will come into play later on. Certainly in the Grand Prix early part of this season, we've seen it be a major factor as Montoya, the first on the road of the two McLarens, dives into the pits. Raikkonen goes past. He will have carried more fuel in qualifying because he knew he was going to take a 10th place drop on the grid for having changed his engine. So Raikkonen has more than Montoya. That could be decisive here this afternoon. He was 2 seconds behind Montoya before that stop. A little bit slow away for Montoya, but he's back in the game.
And if Raikkonen could get himself some more hot sectors, if not a couple of hot laps, he might just leapfrog his teammate. Remember, that happened here last year between Montoya and his Williams teammate Ralf Schumacher, and he went absolutely ballistic about it.
Well, while we're watching this, I imagine there's been a bit of a dice down into the first corner between Michael Schumacher and Juan Montoya, because we saw Michael Schumacher go past us here. We're right above the Ferrari garage after we'd seen Montoya leaving his pit box. So we don't know which of those two has ended up on front on the racetrack, but I fancy it would have been perhaps not quite as close as Coulthard and Heidfeld, but it certainly is a ding-dong between those two, and there's no love lost between them. This is looking good then for Kimi Raikkonen. If that's where Michael Schumacher was relative to them, he needs another couple of laps and he should be able to leapfrog the Ferrari.
We can't see the pit lane from the commentary box because we're literally right on top of it, but Alonso's lead down to just 7.9 seconds after, or when Montoya pitted. He's 9.2 ahead of Raikkonen. He's got a race on this afternoon now, Alonso. He's got to start pushing harder, no doubt about it.
And Montoya did get out in front of Michael Schumacher. Just seen him out of the corner of my eye. We were looking at this midfield battle, but Montoya managed to get out in front of Michael Schumacher. He crosses the start-finish line now with Schumacher behind him. So it's Alonso, Raikkonen, Montoya, Michael Schumacher, the front four. I'm afraid the director's following the wrong story here.
Down into Lise Fisichella, who's down in 9th place now, and nothing like the pace of his teammate. He's been struggling amongst the traffic. He's following Button. We saw them having to change his fuel rig, of course. That's what put him slightly further down the field. Button still in 8th. That's the final points-paying position at the moment. It's going to be tough to score points today.
Certainly is. Here is the race leader then. This is lap 27. Alonso, look at the margin. 9.2 over Raikkonen. He wants to think that he's not really having to race Raikkonen today, considering that the Finn came from 13th on the grid. But, oh, that's Sato off the racetrack. Sato was in 6th in a battle with Barrichello and Jenson Button. What happened?
And that's a desperately late move, a little bit similar to Nürburgring last year, where he tried to get past Jarno Trulli in the Toyota, and that's a good 30 metres too late on the brakes there. That one took him. He's a brave boy, but that will hurt him badly in this race.
And what they've done to his tyres with all that sand and everything going on them. How long does it take to clean that mess off?
A couple of laps. A few corners to get any kind of sense of grip, and a couple of laps to really feel full confidence. Raikkonen blistering first sector on this current lap too. He is absolutely flying, and I'm now beginning to think Raikkonen's was the lap of qualifying. It's so difficult. We've been talking about fake poles recently, where drivers with low fuel loads are on pole and getting all the glory. Alonso certainly wasn't a fake pole this weekend, but it just shows you how good Raikkonen would have been. We're on lap 28 and he still hasn't stopped for fuel. He is now, by the looks of it.
Yeah, he was just 1.5 tenths of a second in qualifying slower than Alonso, and yet he's carried, let me see now, 7-8 more laps of fuel, which is an awful lot around here, where every 10 kilos is worth just over 0.3 of a second a lap. You can see that was a mighty qualifying lap by Kimi Raikkonen, who now comes into the pit lane on lap 29. Not quite half distance in this Grand Prix. He's on a different strategy then from Michael Schumacher and Fernando Alonso. This will drop him about 28 seconds behind Alonso. A lot of work to do, but it should get him out in front of Montoya. That's the crucial thing.
Those tyres look beautiful at the back, a little bit scruffy on the front right, which is a passenger through a lot of the fast corners here, and therefore tends to pick up the rubber. But Raikkonen then out of the pits, where is he?
Montoya is behind him on the racetrack. Raikkonen, by that incredible quick driving then over the last few laps, has managed to jump Montoya. So both McLarens have got in front of Michael Schumacher's Ferrari. That's decisive for this Grand Prix.
Yeah, the tyres had that beautiful matte sheen to them when they're really driving and working nicely. There are the two McLarens a good distance apart, and Michael Schumacher will be scratching that chin of his if he could only get to it and working out how he's ended up back in 4th place.
Well, the game on here at Magny-Cours. A lot of racing still to go. We're not even at halfway yet. The two McLarens are looking terribly strong. Alonso knows he's under a little bit of pressure now. Michael Schumacher wants something out of this Grand Prix as well. It's all shaping up really well. Lap 32 out of 70 here at Magny-Cours. We're 160 miles south of Paris, right in the middle of rural France, the Charolais region, famous for its beef, famous for its cooking across the board, not too far from the Sancerre wine region. It's a decent place to visit if you like your food and drink. Not too much to do in the evenings apart from that, but plenty to do if you're a racing driver on a Sunday afternoon. At the moment, Fernando Alonso is leading this Grand Prix by half a minute from Kimi Raikkonen. Juan Montoya is 3 seconds behind his teammate in 3rd place. Michael Schumacher, who got jumped by both of the McLarens through the first round of pit stops. A different strategy for Schumacher than the two McLarens. He's on a 3, the McLarens are on a 2. He is down in 4th place. Jarno Trulli, who was in 2nd place on the grid and for the opening stint of the Grand Prix, has now dropped to 5th after the first round of pit stops. Rubens Barrichello wasn't able to capitalise like Michael Schumacher did, and he's still behind Trulli in 6th. Jenson Button is 7th. Fisichella is 8th. Takuma Sato, who had a very optimistic lunge at Jarno Trulli for 5th place just a couple of laps ago, that cost him dearly. He's dropped down to 9th place with Jacques Villeneuve in 10th. Quick word for David Coulthard. He's down in 13th place, having a spirited battle this afternoon with the two BMW Williams cars. Both Williams and Red Bull Racing came here this weekend with aerodynamic update kits. It's the 100th new aerodynamic piece, I'm told, on the Williams since the start of the season. It's not really showing on the stopwatch, but at the moment they're locked in a battle with Red Bull Racing for the places just outside the top 10.
We're about to watch Montoya lock his right front. Quite unloaded there, so not too much damage. You can just see the darker, slight flat patch that he creates. That'll get vibration down the back straight. That one wasn't too bad, and it was relatively low speed. Alonso has responded now and has started to pump in some faster lap times. The two McLarens not quite so happy with their heavy load of fuel. So it looks as if Alonso at the moment had built enough of a cushion at the beginning of the race while they were tucked up behind Jarno Trulli, who's now down in 5th place. Alonso is beginning to extend his lead. He's up to 31.1 seconds now. So the McLarens need to find a slightly better way with this heavier fuel load. But it's not all over yet, by a long way.
Certainly not. Alonso, as you can see there, that's how the teams keep track of where everybody is. The names, you can see them moving around the track. And that's how they decide where to bring them into the pits and where they're going to feed back out again, more importantly. We're getting news that Mark Webber has stopped out on the racetrack. Not sure about that, but certainly he had a problem with his pit stop. He came in very, very soon, only 11 laps after his first stop. Ted Kravitz, can you shed some light on this?
Yeah, well, I'm down at Williams, and you know, he's got the same problem. Something's burning him in the seat. Do you remember one of the races last year, a hot race last year in the Jaguar? There was a hole in the seat and it was burning his backside. Well, exactly the same problem is happening. You saw the pit stop, he came in, he said, look, I can't carry on, this is too hot, it's burning me backside, and they poured a bucket of water in there to try and cool him down, but obviously that hasn't done the job.
Yeah, it's where the skid blocks are mounted to the bottom of the chassis, because the driver also sits on the same area, basically, and they just rub down the straight and heat up, and that's where, and you can get significant burns off of those things. Jenson Button, P7, Fisichella still following him, and they're of seconds, 0.7 behind Barrichello in the Ferrari. Sato, having recovered from his rather ambitious move on Jarno Trulli, is back down in 9th. Trulli remains 5th. Alonso's lead beginning to ebb away again, down to 30.9 now. I don't know if he's in back markers, we haven't seen much of him lately. He's in the 1 minute 18s, Raikkonen's in the 17s. Alonso's got to maintain pace, but I still think he's launching his car across those curbs in the final chicane too hard.
Into the pits comes Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari. He's the first of the front runners on a 3-stopper this afternoon to make their second stop of the afternoon, all clinical and clockwork like you would expect from the Ferrari team with so much success they've had over the last few years, and their pit work has been a very big part of that. But Schumacher will be disappointed. He got held up in the opening phase of this race by Jarno Trulli's Toyota, and it meant that he fell prey to the two McLarens of Raikkonen and Montoya. Now Alonso, I believe, is 13 laps into a 19-lap stint as Sato pits from 9th place. So Alonso has 5, 6, 7 laps more to go in this stint, whereas the McLarens are in the early stages of a 25-lap stint. So the strategies are completely different now. In this middle part of the Grand Prix, you'll see the McLarens come a lot closer to Kimi Raikkonen, and it'll be very decisive for them how close they can get to him before the final round of pit stops. That's where this race will be won and lost.
Louise has a story for us.
Yeah, I've been down at the Sauber garage. In fact, I was hastily bustled out at the Sauber garage. A lot of activity, a problem with Felipe Massa's car. They had a problem with the hydraulic system, so they brought him in, frantically worked on it. It's lost him a couple of laps, but they have managed to get him back out again. So fingers crossed there won't be a recurrence of that issue.
Back up to 19 runners then. They managed to get Friseca back on the track as well, as we heard earlier on. Albers pits for what looked like a scheduled stop. He's down in 17th at the moment. I like this, getting race cars back onto the racetrack. Didn't always used to happen. It's great.
Oh, we saw it in Montreal spectacularly with Sato, didn't we? He had a gearbox problem and most people would have parked it, but because of the knock-on effect to the next Grand Prix now, obviously if you get a result in the previous race, you get a better qualifying slot for the next race. They sent Sato out to try and get something out of the afternoon after a 30-minute gearbox replacement. That was the most spectacular example of getting a car back into the race. That's the top 8 then. On lap 37, Alonso leading by 30 seconds from Raikkonen. Montoya now is dropping off the back of Raikkonen a little bit. He's 4 seconds behind him in 3rd place. Michael Schumacher is 20 seconds behind because he made that stop. That second stop of the afternoon for him. Trulli is just 3 seconds behind Michael Schumacher in 5th place. Then Barrichello. Jenson Button is on for a couple of World Championship points. And let's not lose sight, Martin, of the fact that that would be the first championship points of the season for both Button and BAR Honda. This is the 10th race of the year, and the team who finished second last year in the championship yet to get off the mark.
That'll be the first they'll be allowed to keep, anyway, at least. And they did score some in Imola, of course, but they were confiscated due to bad behaviour. Button in, as you say, 7th at the moment. Long way to go. We're just over half distance at the moment. 19 runners.
Yeah, Giancarlo Fisichella we saw earlier on having a problem with the fuel rig. There he is. He's chasing down Jenson Button. He's just, the computer says, half a second behind him. You can see what the margin is with your eye. That's Friseca, I believe, who has pulled off. He was sent back out again, but obviously there's something wrong with the left rear corner of that car. Looks like a puncture.
Yeah. It's the tread has come off. The tread's just where the tread goes into the sidewalls, where they're under pressure. So let's hope that's a puncture, a pure puncture, and not some kind of tyre failure. It's not hard on the tyres here. The ironical thing is it's the hardest place for tyres in the world of Formula One is not turn 13 at Indianapolis. It's Copse Corner at Silverstone and turn 3 in Barcelona. That's where the peak loads are in a Formula One tyre, but that's another story to get into on a different day.
I've had enough of left rear tyres for this month, that's for sure. Out comes Karthikeyan, 16th before he made his stop. He's in a race really only with teammate Thiago Monteiro, because the sole remaining Minardi of Christian Albers is 37 seconds behind Karthikeyan before he made that stop, so quite some way off. And here you can see still one of the smoothest drivers in Formula One, Jenson Button. That's how he treats the curbs. That's how Fisichella treats them. We saw earlier on Alonso giving them a bit of a mauling as well. Here they are again, over that same place. This is the continuing battle for 7th place between Button and Giancarlo Fisichella.
Alonso down into the 116s now. Raikkonen 117, so his lead up to 32 seconds. And the McLaren onslaught has come to a very sudden halt with the extra fuel on board. Nick Heidfeld pits from 11th, still in a big squabble with Coulthard in the Red Bull.
It's been a tough week for BMW Williams, or certainly for the Williams half of the equation, with the news coming from BMW that they're buying the Sauber team. It'll happen Beginning of next season, the team will be the BMW Works team. They'll be based in Switzerland as a Swiss company, but as a division of BMW Motorsport. Mario Tyson, the very ambitious technical director of BMW, just not happy really with the results they've achieved with Williams. They were ahead of target for the first few years, came in together in 2000, 2001. They nearly won the championship in 2003, but last year was such a massive step back for them, and they had a good look at the landscape of Formula One and decided the best way forward for BMW is to own our own team, like Renault do, like Toyota do. Do you think they're doing the right thing?
Maybe, but I'm astonished at the speed at which they're doing it. I thought they'd have a couple of years transition, but they've jumped lock, stock and barrel into that. I mean, you're not going to turn Sauber overnight into a championship-winning team. You've got to get the people in, you've got to get the infrastructure. Sure, they've got a nice factory and a great wind tunnel, but the whole culture, I just assume they'd dip their toe in the water for a season or two and stick with Williams, but it appears they're jumping ship, and maybe there'll be a Williams supplier too.
Well, Alonso's still hitting those curbs. Tyson saying yesterday that he didn't expect them to become a front-running team overnight. Certainly expects his new team to be beaten by Williams next year, and if they're going to use the same engine, then he'd rather that than being beaten by Williams using a Honda or a Toyota or a Cosworth. But you got the impression from Sir Frank Williams' words and his body language that at the moment it's a difficult moment for them. They're not very happy about this situation. Alonso having another little go at getting into 180 there, and Frank Williams interestingly saying that he believes that he'll be just as competitive next year with a customer engine as he's been this year with a works engine, but he believes the expertise and the depth of experience and knowledge within Williams now is so high that they aren't going to lose that overnight, even if perhaps they lose a little horsepower. That's the Renault team manager just having a good look down the pit lane to see what Ferrari are up to. Pit stop is what they're up to. Rubens Barrichello's second stop of the afternoon on lap 40.
Alonso really working hard to get his car into 180 for some reason. Still plenty of meat left on the Bridgestones too. So I believe that the tyre manufacturers, in terms of wear rate, are beginning to get on top of this one tyre for the Grand Prix situation. Obviously it's taken them a few races to understand it, but you have to say yellow flag obviously waved for Minardi of Christian Albers, I believe that is, who bumps his head onto and is that another left rear tyre failure? Yes, it is. He bumped his head on the tractor as he got out, which would have given him a bit of a wake-up call. Down at turn 2, the long Estoril corner. So that's both Minardis out there with a left rear tyre problem. Puncture, elimination, whatever.
Yeah, deflated for sure. Interesting to see what the exact reason was for both of them. It's Bridgestone tyres used by Minardi, of course. On board with the race leader, also World Championship leader Fernando Alonso, very much the man of the moment. It was a huge hit at the Goodwood Festival of Speed last weekend. We saw the piece earlier on where all the great luminaries of British motorsport like Stirling Moss and Lord March were asking him questions. Into the pits comes the race leader then. Lap 42.
That's a decent run he's made there, isn't it? And he's given himself a 34-second lead. Fingers on the buttons ready to just let the launch control take it away, and Flavio knows that will get the job done. That was very nice for Alonso. He's picked up the pace and he's done everything he had to just take the fizz out of the McLaren opposition. He's taken the fizz out of Fisichella's opposition. He's 70 seconds behind him.
Yeah, of course part of that was due to a problem with the fuel rig for Giancarlo Fisichella at his pit stop. Now you can see what happened to Friesacher.
I noticed even on
Albers.
I noticed such a fast corner there. That amazes me how much velocity that thing had when it had travelled the entire distance of the gravel trap. Raikkonen there. We're now beginning to see the drivers work for their money as the tyres get thinner. The heat begins to disappear that's required to give them the best grip. But there's still, again, enough meat right across the tread of the front and rear tyres of that McLaren. We've got the 3 championship contenders, 3 of them in the top 4 in order, really. Alonso, Raikkonen, Montoya is the interloper there, and then Michael Schumacher's 4th.
You have to marvel at how that McLaren is using those tyres, don't you? They look, from here, almost brand new. All 4 grooves still visible front and rear. Let's take a look at how everybody else is managing Not allowed to change your tyres in 2005 rules of Formula One. It's a new rule for this year that they must use the same set of tyres for qualifying, single lap qualifying on Saturday afternoon, and then carry those tyres into the race on Sunday with no opportunity to change them. It's certainly made for some interesting racing. It's made for some interesting conclusions to the Grand Prix. Not everybody is a fan of it. It does seem still rather odd at the pit stops not to see tyres be changed, but I have to say, on balance, I quite like it. Don't know what he thinks about it. That's Pierre Dupasquier, the boss of Michelin. He's obviously looking for someone important to talk to. He took quite a pasting a couple of weeks ago in Indianapolis. There's Hamashima, the boss of Bridgestone. His man, Michael Schumacher, is 4th on the Ferrari, and Rubens Barrichello down to 10th now.
Hammy will be a bit tweaky with those two Minardi Bridgestone left rear tyres. I mean, it did look like a delamination. You have to say, you don't know if they... A bit curious if they both picked up a puncture and then carried on with them. So we'll keep an eye on the Jordans and the Ferraris. But Alonso's rejoined, and in the first few sectors he's actually faster with his fresh fuel load than Raikkonen. So for some reason Raikkonen and Montoya look like they've shot their bolt a little bit. Louise has found Frisaka.
Yeah, Patrick, what happened there? Problem with your tyre, it looked like to us, but what can you tell us?
Already from the beginning, the rear was really nervous, and I just was sliding around everywhere, and then just now the tyre exploded.
Do you think this was something specific to your car? Because obviously your teammate has just gone out as well, or could it potentially be a problem with the Bridgestone?
I think it could be something to our car, but we have to analyze that, and then we have to see.
Thanks, Patrick. Well, I was watching with the team the replay of Christian Alba's accident as well, and the feeling down here is that that wasn't a driver in error, it was some kind of issue with the car. So when Christian gets back, we'll have a word with him too. Big
lock-up for Michael Schumacher. David Coulthard made a stop then while Louise was talking to the Minardi driver Patrick Frisaka, and he's in a battle, Coulthard, with Nick Heidfeld, as he has been all Grand Prix. They almost hit each other when Coulthard came out of the pits last time. I think it's no such thing again this time round. I'm told, Martin, that Minardi used a slightly different specification of Bridgestone tyre from Jordan and certainly from Ferrari, so anything that's a problem for Minardi isn't necessarily going to be a problem for Ferrari and Jordan, because they are using a different specification of tyre.
Yeah, Montoya's just done a 1:21. That's some 3 to 4 seconds off the pace. Don't know why, don't know if he's been off the road, but again, those Michelin rears in the Toyota. Ralph, he's having a very quiet afternoon. He's normally a bit of a specialist around here, Ralph, isn't he? It's one of his better tracks, but Montoya is definitely slow, isn't he? Montoya is hurting badly at this stage for some reason.
Yeah, there's something wrong for Montoya. He's 7/10 slower in the first sector than Raikkonen. He is another 7/10 slower in the middle sector. He's got some kind of problem developing here, Montoya. It's a growing issue. It's not a huge one, but it's certainly losing him about 1.5 to 2 seconds a lap. Lap 47 of the French Grand Prix, and Juan Montoya's problems are really coming alive now. Michael Schumacher goes past him in real time, and Montoya, we believe, has got an engine problem. Martin feels that you heard the engine dragging a little bit. Jenson Button pits. We've just had Jarno Trulli into the pits as well. He is currently in 7th place. Button there pitting from 5th, but Montoya was giving away 1/2 to 3/4 of a second per sector, so almost 3 seconds a lap over the last couple of laps. Mark Webber just breezed past him on the straight to unlap himself just the last lap, and you can see how easy it was for Michael Schumacher to get past him as well. So Montoya struggling. He's using one of the older specification Mercedes engines. They did bring a new engine here this weekend, which Raikkonen blew up on Friday. Montoya was on the second race with this engine. Well, he didn't do much at Indianapolis, did it? But it just looks like it's letting go here this weekend. Ted, what can you tell us?
Well, whether it's an engine failure or a misfire or a cracked exhaust or whatever, it does sound rough, and I'm afraid to say that it's terminal, because the mechanics have cleared a space in the McLaren garage for Juan Pablo Montoya. They're about to bring him in. Martin Whitmarsh off the pit wall. They're talking to him on the radio. They're going to retire Montoya in this McLaren Mercedes.
He's not going to make it back to the pits, unfortunately. I'd imagine it's some kind of fuel problem. It's as if he was just gradually losing power. No smoke and no bits and pieces flying out the side of the engine. That's a systems problem rather than a structural problem, I would suspect. And, well, that puts Michael up into 3rd, and currently Villeneuve up into 4th. Where's he come from?
Well, he's not made his second stop of the afternoon yet. He's on a different strategy. Sauber did that last year with Giancarlo Fisichella. It was pretty competitive, I have to say. Ron Dennis there, the McLaren boss, up on the wall, seeing Montoya retire for the first time this season. It's been a checkered season for Juan Pablo Montoya, because he missed a couple of Grand Prix after he broke his shoulder with a mysterious sporting accident away from the racetrack. He missed Bahrain and San Marino, came bouncing back in Spain, but it's not really been his year so far. He's only scored 16 World Championship points, and his teammate Raikkonen is challenging for the World Championship. But that is still the first retirement of the season for Montoya.
Jenson Button has passed in the pit stops Jarno Trulli. He's now up to P6, and he can get away truly with his mirrors full of Barrichello and Ralf Schumacher as Heidfeld pits. Coulthard has now passed him too. Coulthard ahead of both Williams now. Williams really the last of the budgeted teams, you'd have to say, and having a dismal afternoon.
They really are, aren't they? I mean, Heidfeld was 18 seconds behind Coulthard before that round of pit stops. As you can see, Alonso puts a lap on Rubens Barrichello. So 8th place man, Rubens Barrichello in the Ferrari, is lapped by race leader Fernando Alonso. This time last year, Barrichello at this very corner, as Villeneuve makes his pit stop. At that final corner, Barrichello jumped Jarno Trulli in the Renault to grab the final podium spot. He finished on that day behind Fernando Alonso on the racetrack. What a difference a year makes. Alonso in the Renault laps a Ferrari at Magny-Cours. 21 laps to go.
Yes, and he's also about to lap the guy who started on the front row of the grid with him, Jarno Trulli. Such was the pace he had in the early stages of the Grand Prix, and the response that he's given once the McLarens went on the rampage. His lead over Raikkonen at the moment down to 12.9 seconds. Raikkonen, they're a stop apart, aren't they?
So Trulli very neatly gets out of his way before the high-speed Nürburgring chicane, carrying 160 miles an hour on the entry to that, about 130 miles an hour through it. Alonso is on such a charge here this afternoon. Even despite the fact he's lapping cars, he's still going mighty quick. Here's the other fast chicane here. Let's enjoy this. Oh, what a feeling that must be to go through when you stand on the side of the racetrack and watch them whip through there at 130 miles an hour. You look at it and you think, in a road car I'd be lucky to get through there at 50. And the grip these cars have, the way the aerodynamics force them to the ground, absolutely incredible. Heidfeld in the pits again. He was in just a lap or two ago.
Yeah, that's his 4th stop. Clearly got a problem. He's down in 13th at the moment, and is going to come under pressure soon from Montero and co at the back of the field. That's the pickup you get on the inside right front tyre. That, as I say, is mostly a passenger through, or relatively speaking, a passenger through the long Estoril corner. That tends to just get a lot of what we call pickup.
There goes Montoya's car, hoisted away. It's hard for Williams. I'm sure everybody back at home in Grove is watching this Grand Prix with us here on ITV, and they're all scratching their heads as well. They've come here with, I'm told, 22 new parts as Takuma Sato goes off the road yet again. Sato in 10th place. That's the second time he's gone off the road. He outbraked himself into the, and Jarno Trulli, into the Adelaide hairpin earlier on. But I feel sorry for the Williams guys. They brought a lot of new parts to the car. It just isn't fast enough. They cannot get any pace out of it. In qualifying, they can't get any heat into the tyres to get grip and get themselves good bite. And Mark Webber, who was qualifying in the top 6 for the first part of this season, is now solidly outside the top 10.
There we go, you can see the dust in the distance, and what's happened is somebody's put a lot of gravel on the track. Sato's gone off in sympathy, just keeps it out of the wall. Coulthard and Webber will pass him while he's out. He did well to keep it going, actually. So what I want to know is who went off ahead of him.
Well, the two cars in front of him on the road in the race are Ralf Schumacher 8 seconds in front and Villeneuve 3 seconds in front of him. So it looked like someone a bit closer than that, possibly a back marker.
Well, somebody dropped it in the left-hander of turn 1 and sort of gone a bit through the gravel trap, dragged some gravel into the heart of turn 2, and that's where Sato went off. Button up to P5 now.
Yeah, Jenson Button looking for some World Championship points here this afternoon. 5th place would give him 4 World Championship points. That would be a nice boost with the British Grand Prix just a week away. A 100 sellout at Silverstone. We're looking forward to a real festival of British motorsport, and certainly looking forward to BAR Honda and Jenson Button being competitive that weekend. Well, he's a lap down here, as into the pits for the 3rd time this afternoon comes Michael Schumacher.
procedural stuff. Clear out the side pods, check the tyre wear, give him a fresh load of fuel. Now that front left of his is looking a little bit thin. Run about 3 degrees of front camber, so the inside, the top of the tyre leaning in towards the chassis. So you'll always get the inside of the tyre wearing first. Let's put camber thrust into the tyre to generate the grip.
Well, there's Giancarlo Fisichella. Michael Schumacher has emerged in front of him, so he's held on to his podium slot at the moment as Schumacher. So he's looking set for another podium finish here this season. He's the winner in Indianapolis, podium in second place in Montreal, second place also in San Marino. It's not been a vintage season for Michael Schumacher, but it's starting to come good now. They're really improving this car, and with the retirement of Juan Montoya, that's promoted Michael Schumacher to third place. Ted Kravitz, what can you tell us?
Down at Williams, it's a problem with the left rear tyre. Nick Heidfeld swears blind that there's something wrong with it. He says the car is so difficult to handle. He came in, they changed the tyre on the left rear, which is interesting because they examined it and there was nothing wrong with it, Martin. So that'll be interesting to see what happens there. He came in again, they checked the suspension. They couldn't find anything wrong with the car. So they've told him to keep going because that'll mean he gets a better qualifying spot at Silverstone.
Yeah, sounds almost certainly that when they have chance to look a little bit closer, when the car's cooled down a bit, they may well find something loose or broken in the suspension over those wicked curbs that Alonso is still bouncing over as he comes up and approaches to lap Michael Schumacher, who's just stopped. So Alonso's yet to stop again.
That's Fisichella, I think, yeah, following Michael Schumacher on the road. Third and fourth, these two. Fisichella is certainly not having the kind of afternoon that his teammate is having. Well, we saw Juan Montoya retiring from what was a certain podium. His rotten luck continues, and Luis Goodman's found him.
Yeah, he's with me now, James. First retirement of the season, Juan Pablo. Any idea what caused it?
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame. We got a hydraulic leak in the car, and first, power steering went in the gears and the throttle. It's a bit of a shame. We took a big gamble in my car to go with a different tyre, and initially I thought it was going to pay off, and it was good. The car was competitive. It was, the pace with Kimi was good, so I was pretty happy. But things like that happens. It's been a very bad season for me. Everything's been gone wrong, but we keep trying.
Thanks, Juan Pablo.
So it was a control system and not an engine failure. In fact, almost nothing to do with the engine. But Alonso, his next victim to lap is Fisichella, his teammate. I don't know where they are relative to each other on the racetrack. Fisichella is all over the back of Michael Schumacher now, and that will be for third place. So he's suddenly got a nice carrot in front of him. Raikkonen's keeping the lead of Alonso down to 12.9 seconds. We believe they've both got to stop one more time. So plenty of racing to be done yet. Button maintains fifth. Truly sixth. He started second, he's been lapped, he's not had any race pace. Now he's got Rubens Barrichello in the second Ferrari all over the back of him.
Just 16 laps to go, and we said it's the final stages where people will start to get into difficulties with their tyres, and this is the kind of zone we're expected to see it. Schumacher making adjustments down with his right hand there, coming off the steering wheel. In the old days, you'd have seen a driver changing gear all the time with his right hand. Now it's just flicking paddles on the back of a steering wheel. And Schumacher probably adjusting the brake balance there down on the right-hand side of the cockpit. Riding on board then with Fisichella at the back of the circuit. That's the Imola chicane. 130 miles an hour through there. Brake hard for Chateau d'Eau, the water tower. 50 miles an hour there on the exit, dropping down the hill. On board with Schumacher, 150 miles an hour at this point before braking hard for the 50 mile an hour Lycée corner. Lycée means school in French. Then the final chicane, bouncing up over those curbs to cross the finish line. And how many times in the past have we seen Michael Schumacher zigzagging as he wins yet another French Grand Prix? He's won here 7 times. He was chasing a record 8th victory here. No one's ever won the same Grand Prix 8 times, but today it's not to be. Certainly looks that way as the team get ready for Barrichello, because Michael Schumacher looks set for 3rd place here, and Kimi Raikkonen has also pitted from 2nd place.
Yes, Raikkonen's been flying this last 2 or 3 laps. The lead, 14 seconds at the moment. Barrichello away very quickly. A short fill, of course, to the end. I think Fisichella's got to pit again. Yeah, he's pitted on lap 44. Be surprised if he fueled up for 26 laps. So this might not be a real fight going on here. Michael surely has finished all of his stops now.
Well, one guy who is certainly be hoping that Fisichella is going to pit again, which I agree with you, Martin, that he is Jenson Button, because that would pop him up into 4th place. And we'll see what Button's strategy, how that would play out later on. Just 15 laps to go then here. Alonso leads Raikkonen, Michael Schumacher 3rd, Fisichella 4th, and Jenson Button is 5th. Welcome back to Magny-Cours, France, French Grand Prix. James Allen and Martin Brundle with you, where Fernando Alonso, the race leader and championship leader, makes his final pit stop of the afternoon and rejoins in the lead comfortably. He is going so fast, he was coming up to lap his teammate Giancarlo Fisichella in 4th place and Michael Schumacher in 3rd. And Martin, part of the reason he was able to do that is because Schumacher seems to have a problem here as Raikkonen sides his way through. He's in 2nd place at the moment, Schumacher 3rd, Fisichella 4th, Jenson Button 5th, but we think that Michael Schumacher's beginning to lose some grip.
He is, yes. Fisichella needs to clear Michael. He might just be able to make enough space then. I think he's clearly got to have another stop. And yeah, Alonso was just about to lap 3rd and 4th place men, and I think very smartly Renault just hauled him in. He didn't want to get involved in that fight between his teammate Fisichella and Michael Schumacher, as a Raikkonen 2nd place man and comfortably clear. Interestingly now, Alonso and Raikkonen have finished all of their scheduled stops. Alonso clearly has a comfortable track position on that one.
He certainly does, as Nick Heidfeld comes out of the pits. He's been in and out 6 times already this afternoon. There is Giancarlo Fisichella then pitting from 4th place, and that will lose him 20 seconds off the tail of Michael Schumacher. But oh, he stalled it! I don't believe it, he stalled it! That's great news for Jenson Button, but rotten luck for Giancarlo Fisichella. Get it started again, come on!
He has to wait to get neutral. He needs hydraulic pressure, gets neutral, pulls first again, and off he goes. I don't think he really did anything wrong. It sounded like the clutch was dragging quite early on that. It's effectively a button system they use. And as you say, Jenson Button will be a man who will gain nicely from that. Takes the pressure off Michael Schumacher. Puts Button surely in with a great chance now of 4th place.
It could be in with a chance of a podium if he's not got too much problem with his tyres and Michael Schumacher's problems develop. Then he might even be able to get Michael Schumacher in the 11 laps that remain here at Magny-Cours. It's a big question mark, it's a big ask, but Button is 13 seconds behind Michael Schumacher as we speak, with 11 laps to go.
Come on, Jenson, have you got anything left now in terms of lap time in your pocket? It's the time to deliver it, isn't it? He's got some clear air, the leader coming up to lap him, but that shouldn't cost him too much time. As you say, Jenson now with the doors wide open.
Certainly are. The leaders then, Alonso and Raikkonen lapping. Well, Alonso's been steadily in the 16s. He's just taken fuel on board, so his first flying lap for him as he mullers the curbs coming across a 1:17.9. Kimi Raikkonen is also lapping in the mid to high 1:17s, but Michael Schumacher's just done a 1:21 lap, 2 seconds slower than Jenson Button. So Schumacher with a bit of lap traffic, I think, is part of the problem, but also clearly struggling a little bit for grip here. Gives an opportunity to Button if he can find anything special. Trulli is 5th, Fisichella 6th. Ralf Schumacher has crept up into the points in 7th place. Jacques Villeneuve is 8th for Sauber. Out of the points at the moment is Rubens Barrichello in 9th place, as we look at Takuma Sato removing a plastic tear off from his visor. It's obviously got dirty. That's just taking a couple of turns out of the front wing.
You have to be so careful not to deliver that into your own airbox. That calms the engine down a bit for the rest of the race without laying in the filter. You really do have to. It's so easy for it just to go straight up the airbox directly above your head. Alonso still lapping in the 1:17s, as is Raikkonen. The gap pretty static at 18 seconds. Michael Schumacher with another 1:19 and pretty slow lap. He is definitely struggling with grip as his tyres are wearing down and beginning to fade in terms of temperature, but Button even slower. So Button without that pace. He pitted on lap 46, Jenson. Looked like he was on a 3-stopper, so he may well yet have to stop again.
I think he's stuck in traffic, Martin. He's in front of, here's the race leader, Fernando Alonso. Jenson Button is in that gaggle of cars there. He's behind a Jordan. That's why he was slow on that last lap. He was behind Carter Cayen's Jordan. He's about to get lapped himself. is Jenson Button by the race leader, but he won't be thinking about that. He'll be thinking about Michael Schumacher. He took 2 seconds out of him on the previous lap. Maybe traffic was a part of that as well, but Button now is free. He's going to have to get out of the way for Alonso, but has Jenson got anything left in the tank? Alonso, a little lock up there.
Ted has news from Ferrari.
Yeah, exactly, down at the Scuderia, and they insist there is no problem with Michael Schumacher's car. They say Michael has not been on the radio to say any problems, any whinges around about tyre wear or anything like that. So we do know that it's Ferrari's way to control the race, to drop all the revs and everything after the second stops, and we're at that point now. So if Jenson gets any closer, I fancy Michael could just up the pace.
Well, I think they'll be a little bit unhappy on the Ferrari pit wall. They're 66 seconds behind, so if they've got no problems, then they've got problems.
Exactly. I couldn't have said it better myself. Over a minute behind the world champion is behind the current world championship leader. They've come here with a vastly upgraded car, lots of little aerodynamic flip-ups and tweaks and wings and engine covers, a little boost on the engine as well. Certainly made them more competitive in qualifying. Their long runs in practice indicated a car that perhaps wasn't able to beat the McLarens and the Renaults, but certainly looked like giving them something to think about. So much so that Michael Schumacher said after practice on Friday, I think we can challenge for the victory here this weekend. 66 seconds behind after 62 laps suggests otherwise.
Yes, Michael was pretty... he surprised me in Indianapolis. He said, well, we would have won anyway. We would have done very well. The car was great. But I don't think we saw the kind of lap times that we thought would have been dominating that race had we had a full grid.
On board with the race leader. Let's enjoy it.
Sort of get that shunting in the transmission as you shift up. It feels horrible when you first sit in a Formula 1 car and you haven't been in one for a while, even if you've just been out 2 or 3 weeks. And then you just get used to it again. But all of the upshifts, as you get the oscillation going through the transmission system, and it's generated by the flex in the tyre sidewall. They're only 13-inch wheels on these cars, so they've got a very high tyre sidewall.
Well, the bad news for Jenson Button fans and good news for Michael Schumacher and his fans is that Button hasn't got the speed to respond to Schumacher's difficulties. 1 minute 19.7 that last lap, 2 seconds a lap slower than Alonso and Raikkonen was Michael Schumacher, but Jenson Button was only half a second faster, so he's still 12 seconds behind the reigning world champion. Nevertheless, Jenson Button is in 4th place, on target for 5 world championship points. Takuma Sato, his teammate, doesn't look like he's going to get any this afternoon. He's down in 11th, so at least Jenson is going to get BAR Honda off the mark in the 10th round of the world championship. And that will be great news for them, and a great result for Jenson going into next week's British Grand Prix.
Don't go and do a Murray on him. He's not got them yet. Still 7 laps to go, including the one that we're on. Alonso 17 seconds ahead. That's game, set and match for him, isn't it? Michael Schumacher now 68 seconds adrift in 3rd place. Jenson creeping up on Michael at 10, maybe sometimes 3 or 4 tenths, but there's not enough time left. Truly holding station in 5th. Fisichella lacklustre, you have to say, in 6th, despite that fuel rig problem. Ralph, where's he been all day, in 7th. Villeneuve's done a good job for Sauber. He's 8th, and looks like he was on a 2-stopper. Coulthard, though, catching Barrichello, who's 9th, catching him very quickly now, and he's catching Villeneuve too, so Coulthard might just make a race of something in the closing stages of this Grand Prix, but it looks like he may miss out on the points.
But it's certainly been a race in which the pendulum has swung forwards and backwards. Fernando Alonso, though, has been the ever-constant here in Magny-Cours. He charged away at the start into a lead. Jarno Trulli in the Toyota held everybody up behind him, particularly Michael Schumacher, who just couldn't get past the Toyota. He was running in 3rd place in the early stages, and it was the McLaren drivers, Montoya and Kimi Raikkonen, who started down the field in 8th and 13th, who benefited most from Trulli holding everybody up. When all the front runners who were on 3-stop strategies made their first stops, the 2 McLaren drivers were able to leapfrog everybody, and before too long they were 2nd and 3rd in this Grand Prix. But then problems struck for Juan Pablo Montoya, hydraulics problem for him, and that took him out of the Grand Prix. His first retirement of the 2005 season. Michael Schumacher then inherited third from Montoya, but a long, long way distant, 69 seconds behind Fernando Alonso after 65 laps. And, well, of the rest of them, Jenson Button has fought his way through. Car not quite as competitive in the race as perhaps it showed in qualifying. Jarno Trulli, very quick in qualifying, didn't have the pace in the race either. He dropped down to 5th place. Giancarlo Fisichella in the sister Renault is a lap down to his teammate, and some of that had to do with a sticking problem with the fuel hose at one of his pit stops, but otherwise he's had a bad luck. He stalled the car on another pit stop and hasn't had the pace here this afternoon, and as we speak he's 2 seconds a lap slower than Alonso in the same car. Ralf Schumacher has crept into the points in 7th, Villeneuve 8th in the Sauber. There is John Button and Jeff Willis, the technical director of the BAR Honda team, tremendous aerodynamicist, now the technical director of that team. He was at Williams before with Adrian Newey, a tremendous record of success there, now trying to make it on his own as the boss of his own technical department. This is a boost for him with 4th place for Jenson today, but you'd have to say that once again Renault and McLaren are the 2 choice cars of the field, and Ferrari, Toyota, Williams, try as they might to put new things on the car, they're not getting closer to Renault and McLaren, are they?
Doesn't appear so from this Grand Prix, does it? But Sato should have been up there too. He's been quick, but he had a couple of adventures, didn't he, that cost him very dearly. He was unlucky with the second one, because when you turn up into the heart of turn 2 and the track is covered in gravel, there's not an awful lot you can do about it. But how many yellow and red flags, stripy flags they wave at you, you're doing 175 miles an hour. Ted has some news.
Down at Williams, Martin, Mark Webber is still in pain. The car is still very hot. There's something which is still burning his backside, but he's not complaining about it too much on the radio, I've just been told. And Nick Heidfeld, he says the car is still impossible to drive, but he's just dragging it round, still trying to get that good spot for Silverstone qualifying. So really a French Grand Prix to forget for BMW Williams.
So there is the race leader, Fernando Alonso. 3 laps to go only now for Alonso. This is lap 68. He's 17 seconds ahead of Kimi Raikkonen, who in turn is 55 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher. Jenson Button 11 seconds behind Schumacher, who is running the clock down now. Button doesn't have the pace to close him down. Trulli 3 seconds behind Button. Fisichella 9 behind Trulli. Ralf Schumacher 7th, Villeneuve 8th place. And the 80,000 crowd here, many of them Renault employees, the blue and yellow. It's a tremendous coincidence, a happy coincidence really for Renault, that shade of blue you can see around Alonso's cockpit happens to match the colours of Asturias, the region of Spain from which Fernando Alonso hails. And so more and more at these European Grand Prix we're seeing Spanish fans who we really haven't seen before in Formula One in the last few years. Ever since this kid came along, they've started to travel. They carry their flags, which are, as I say, the same colour as that blue of the Renault. And all of a sudden you're used to seeing over the years Ferrari red everywhere in the grandstands, as you were saying yesterday. So many teams have tried to get Jaguar green or McLaren silver, get the grandstands to buy into the dream and the image, but it seems that Renault are doing it all thanks to this kid.
Yep, let's give Renault the French Grand Prix as long as London gets the 2012 Olympics. We'll trade them right now. We'll get it anyway. Alonso into lap 69, the penultimate lap. Briatore there looking decidedly nervous, not really sure why, 16 seconds ahead. And this surely stamps Alonso's authority on the World Championship at this pivotal month, as you were saying, James. A lot of points to be won and lost this month.
Absolutely. 40 points in the Drivers' Championship up for grabs before the end of July. It's an important weekend for Flavio Briatore, the boss of the Renault team, because his new boss, Carlos Ghosn, who is the president of Renault, he's just taken over from Louis Schweitzer, who's been the president for many, many years and who was on the board which voted for Renault to come back into Formula One. And with a full onslaught, there were some stories that Ghosn wasn't a big Formula One fan. He didn't think it was value for money for the hundreds of millions of dollars it cost him every year. He was here this morning, gave a press conference at which he said, hey, I like Formula One as long as we win, it's an investment. When we lose, it's an expense. It was a great way of putting it, and we will stick around for as long as we're successful, which puts a little bit of pressure on Flavio and his team. But if they carry on having afternoons like this, then you can expect that Mr. Ghosn will carry on writing the cheques for Renault Across the line to complete the penultimate lap goes Fernando Alonso. He's been peerless here this afternoon. I'm not even going to ask you who your driver of the day is, because presumably it's got to be him for his amazing performance.
Yeah, it's an easy one, isn't it? Alonso, his qualifying performance was sensational, but his race pace was some of the strongest I've seen since Michael Schumacher was clearly dominating Formula One. Alonso just really whooped them. He beat them easy.
So into the final lap goes the Renault. It's been an amazing performance from him. The last time, as I said at the beginning, that a Renault car won the French Grand Prix was when Alonso wasn't even 2 years old, back in 1983. Alain Prost, who's here this afternoon, won many races with Renault engines, won a few in a Renault chassis as well. He won that day in Paul Ricard in the south of France. And now the French, who have no driver in the field here for the first time in 40 years, which is certainly a source of great sadness to them. They have a big corporate presence in Formula One through Michelin, the tyre company, and of course Renault as well, the manufacturer of the engine and chassis. And what a historic day for Fernando Alonso, who crosses the line for his 5th Grand Prix victory of the season. He crawls across the line. It's the 6th win for him in only 59 Grand Prix starts. Yes, Fernando, you've won the big 5 already, and this is only the 10th Grand Prix of the year.
He remembered which mirror the camera is in, didn't he? Really, a totally dominant performance from Alonso. Raikkonen crosses the line 11.8 seconds adrift, although Alonso's final lap was very, very slow anyway, hence the gap coming down a bit. Michael Schumacher is third, the last unlapped runner. That's Carlos Ghosn, who you were talking about, James. But Michael Schumacher yet to finish. Everybody else finishes the race a lap early. Once the leaders cross the line and you're a lap behind him, then you can go no further. So we're still waiting for Schumi, some 73 seconds adrift, to come and claim his pot. He can't be beaten either now. He can't lose third place now, because clearly he's ahead of the rest of them. He's the final man to complete the Grand Prix. There he is, coasting around.
Yeah, coasting is the word for it. It's been not a spectacular Grand Prix as far as Ferrari's concerned in terms of its race pace, but nevertheless, Schumacher claims another podium, and we'll see him up there in just a moment. Welcome back to Magny-Cours in central France, where Fernando Alonso has given these guys, 80,000 French fans, something to smile about by giving Renault a victory on home soil. And what a dominant victory it was as well. You can see firecrackers going off on his slow-down lap. It really means a lot to him, this one. It's his 5th win of the season. He's been going around giving it the high five to everybody, but a terribly important one for all kinds of reasons. One of which is he puts an extra 2 points on his lead over Kimi Raikkonen, which is now 24 points. We've got 3 different makes of car once again in the top 3, 5 different makes of car in the top 5 in the finishing order. Again, underlining what a competitive season of Formula One we're having. Kimi Raikkonen, who had to take a 10-place drop on the grid after changing his engine on Friday night. A tremendous recovery from him, from 13th on the grid to finish 2nd here this afternoon and keep his title hopes alive, keep Alonso in contact with Alonso. And there's Michael Schumacher, who's the other championship protagonist this year. He too gets a podium, but he'll want to know why his Ferrari was over a minute behind at the end of the Grand Prix.
Yeah, it would have been interesting to see just where Raikkonen would have been if he'd have started third, as he should have done. We don't know how hard, we'll probably never know the answer to that question, and how hard Alonso was pushing at all times. He was certainly not giving any quarter on those curbs where required. But Raikkonen then with a solid performance and a major damage limitation exercise there for him to come through and pick up the 8 World Championship points. 5 points for Button then, he's off the mark. Let's hope he keeps them.
Well, Kimi Raikkonen was only just a 10th of a second slower in qualifying than Alonso, and yet he was carrying almost 20 kilos more fuel, which is quite a significant amount. It's about over half a second's worth in terms of weight penalty, and yet he was just a 10th behind him, so it was a mesmerising qualifying performance by Raikkonen. As you say, Martin, it's one of the great ifs in Formula One. They're ever present, aren't they? What if, what if? The fact of the matter is that there's Fisichella not very happy. Car not really working today. Problems with the refueling. It's just not working out for him. But I do wonder, as you say, what would have happened if Raikkonen had started third, where he actually qualified before he took that 10th-place drop, because that would have been one heck of a race between those two.
Strange, wasn't it? McLaren, I know there were different fuel loads at that time, but McLaren just suddenly took off as soon as they got some clear air, and it looked like they were very much coming into the frame. And then they just held station, really. They didn't seem to have that pace in the second half of the race.
Three best drivers in Formula One at the moment. The great master on the right, 7 times a world champion, 84 times a race winner, with the 2 young guys who are threatening to take his crown away from him. And the more it goes on like this, the more likely it looks we'll have the youngest ever world champion at the end of this year, and the man will be Fernando Alonso. Raikkonen's challenging him. Michael Schumacher is trying to stay in touch. This is the story of 2005. So much of the challenge of becoming a champion is about keeping your nerve. And with all that's been going on here this weekend behind the scenes with the drivers, Alonso has managed to do that. So much of it is about keeping the pressure on, pushing hard. Alain Prost knows all about that. He won 4 World Drivers' titles. He's in good company up there. All of those men are capable of taking over his legacy. Michael Schumacher already has, and taking it on some beyond that as well.
No French drivers in the race for the first time in 40 years, but they wheel out a legend to hand over the first place trophy. The feeling is that McLaren will have the edge next weekend in Silverstone. We'll find out soon enough, but I think it was very important for Alonso to take these points today.
Yeah, the Renault team know that. Renault collecting the Constructors' Championship trophy. Fernando Alonso there applauding Kimi Raikkonen. 2nd place, Tony Parker, the basketball star from the San Antonio Spurs, presenting that one. He's taller than all the drivers, even though they're standing on the podium. And Jacques Régis will present the 3rd place trophy to Michael Schumacher. He's a mover and shaker behind the scenes in Formula One. So a sunny day in Magny-Cours, and it's restored Fernando Alonso to the top step of the podium after the chaos of Indianapolis 2 weeks ago. Michelin back on top here in France, a 1-2 for them. Bridgestone 3 with Michael Schumacher. Next stop will be Silverstone next weekend. We look forward very, very much to seeing you there.
Thank you, James. Thank you, Martin. Fernando Alonso delivering for Renault at their home. The massive fan club getting the result they really came for. And so do much maligned Michelin on their doorstep too. Alonso is the man at the moment. All we can do is hope for similar home success at Silverstone next Sunday. But ring the bell. Jenson Button has his first points of the season. Let's see what he's got to say about it.
Well, Jensen, you've told me off on a couple of occasions for mentioning the fact that you didn't have any points, so let me be amongst the first to congratulate you. You're off from the mark.
Oh, thank you very much. It's a nice feeling. It would have been nice to have got on the podium, but it's a great result for us. We've struggled this year for various reasons, so I can't even talk. But it's great to get some points, and this is a good base for Silverstone. Hopefully we're going to have a great race there.
We were hoping, we could see you gently closing in on Michael. We were all hoping you were going to get that podium. You just didn't have enough pace left?
No, and in one of the corners I had a problem shifting down from fourth to second, and it was just pushing me on. I was getting big issues there, so... Anyway, it's a great result, and hopefully we're going to have lots of fans cheering us on in Silverstone.
This is a fantastic result, isn't it? It's a fantastic result anyway, but especially in the build-up to your home Grand Prix.
Yeah, some people might not think it is, but for us to get fourth at the moment is a great result, and I'm sure everyone's going to be pretty chuffed for that, and we're going to be positive for next weekend, where hopefully we can have the same sort of result.
You've been threatening for a while. You finally did deliver, but there's got to be more to come. This has got to be the start of the push forward.
Yeah, it's just a little bit of luck, really. we have made some mistakes as well, the team and myself, so it's good to be on the scoreboard, and I'm going to have a good evening this evening. Not too much, because we're racing next weekend, but I might have a beer.
Go and have a glass of water or a cup of tea with the boys.
A cup of tea. Not with the boys, but...
There's plenty of wine around in this part of the world as well. Full house waiting for him at Silverstone. A massive boost for Jensen and for British racing.
Yeah, very, very timely boost as well. There's a big tactical contest out there today. Sweltering conditions, very, very hot contest. And coming through from 7th like that, it was the 2 stoppers against the 3 stoppers. Honda will be very pleased with the reliability. BAR will be very pleased, especially they did a massive, massive test, and he was fastest in Jerez after 3 days of real solid testing. It's nice to see it carried over through to a Grand Prix and it really making points in their first points of the year.
We are beating the Jensen Button drum with Silverstone looming, but in reality Fernando Alonso today was totally different class, lapping everybody, Rubens Barrichello included, except the 2 that finished right behind him.
Absolutely, like in Malaysia, he hadn't won in Australia. The first race was won by his teammate Fisichella, but this was clearly showing what a magnificent car this is, the RS25. It's so well balanced. The engine from Rob White's department in France, the Renault engine, is so good. Everything worked so well, set it up really well, and off he went and left everybody for dead.
Thank you, Tony. Let us hear from the winner in the press conference.
Fernando, a beautiful summer's day, a packed crowd here at the French Grand Prix. Perfect race from start to finish from pole position.
Yeah, it was really, really good. The car performs extremely well again in the race. We were very competitive from the first lap. I saw the mirror and I saw Jarno going down a little bit, so I pushed a little bit more until the first stint, and then the gap was quite nice, and we controlled the race a little bit more. I think Barcelona and here in Manicus, to see all the supporters, all the blue grandstands, I think it's a extra motivation, and we did 2 good races in Barcelona and here, but obviously better to win.
Well, you crossed the line at a fairly slow pace, just I guess to acknowledge your team, and then to savour that slowdown lap. Can you some emotions on that slowdown lap?
Yeah, well, after the last pit stop, the things were already quite set, and no problems at all with the car and with Kimi, because he did the stop as well. So the last 10 laps happened really, really slow, and from 3 or 4 laps to the end, I was, expecting this moment, waiting for crossing the line and enjoying the victory with the team and with the grandstand in front of the pits that were most of the people coming from Renault factory. So I really crossed the line slow just to enjoy with them.
A remarkable young man. He looks as relaxed as he did at Goodwood last Sunday.
But what is great is how the 2 careers have developed in tandem of Kimi Räikkönen and Fernando Alonso. They both started in 01. But what I regret today is not just Räikkönen coming from 13th, which was brilliant. The aerodynamics are so strong. We've come to a high aero circuit after the low ones, and people found it difficult to pass. Now, in the new regs they talked about for 08, 10% only on aero. That's what we want. That's why they couldn't pass today. We were deprived of some entertainment.
McLaren must be kicking themselves at the moment. Their car is absolutely brilliant, and Raikkonen was demoted 10 places down the grid. Montoya had problems. They still feel they can get up there and challenge and beat Renault.
I'm sure they will have had a flutter, you know, that knowing it's hydraulics fine, but they were worried in case it was the engine, because they had one let go in Jerez with Juan Pablo Montoya last week. Some engine-related problem, we don't know exactly which. And we haven't got the results yet of the new spec engine, which was sent back to Mercedes. So still a little bit of worry. You've got to be bulletproof to keep challenging in this championship.
Yeah, the busiest month we're coming up to finally in F1 history, and Alonso has really thrown down the gauntlet here, hasn't he? He is the one to catch.
He is the one to catch. He's absolutely brilliant. And out of the two, Kimi Raikkonen and Fernando Alonso, Fernando has the edge, incredibly intelligent driver, but today he was just dominant. He was superb. He didn't put a wheel wrong.
Lives in Oxford, so Silverstone nearly a home race for him, eh, Tony?
Well, exactly. You know, he is an honorary Englishman. We'll let him through the gates, I think.
Okay. Congratulate today's runaway winner, Fernando Alonso. We wish London the very best of luck in Singapore on Wednesday with that Olympic bid. Then it is Silverstone. Here we come. Cheerio.
Britain's biggest day of motorsport starts any time now. Go! Button now up into 4th place. Oh, it's a big crash for Jarno Trulli. What a tremendous drive by Michael Schumacher.